I will take trustee roll call. Please answer as I call your name in alphabetical order by last name. Trustee Amos.
Good evening, everyone.
Trustee Collard.
Good evening.
Trustee Danielle.
Thank you. I am here.
Vice Chair Harrison.
Hello.
Trustee Garett.
Nice to be here tonight.
Trustee Gray.
Hello.
Trustee Oliver.
Good evening, everyone.
Trustee Reynolds.
Present.
Trustee Rocha.
Good evening.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Hello, everyone.
Trustee Taylor.
Good evening, everyone.
And Trustee Vigilankara.
Good evening.
Excellent. Director Miller, could you please let us know who from the staff is present this evening?
Thank you, Chair Grevance. All the senior staff is here. The usual people that are here, including manager of the director's office, Gail Courtmaker.
Thank you very much. This evening, Trustee Garett will be honoring the land. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis, from the Anishinaabe to the Attawandaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis. These lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions, land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest? I'm looking over to the speakers list. Seeing none. Next, we are up to the agenda. Trustee Oliver, would you like to move a motion to approve the agenda?
Yes, I will move that motion.
Thank you. Trustee Shuttleworth, would you like to second the motion?
I sure will.
Thank you. Is there any discussion about the agenda this evening? Looking to the speakers list. Seeing none. Next, we need to vote. So if you could please go to your voting app. Are you in favor of approving the agenda for this evening? And that does carry, though we are missing. I know Trustee Gray is unable to vote at this time, but there is someone else, I believe, who's missing. Let's see.
Madam Chair, it might be you.
Oh, I didn't hit my submit button. Boy, I'm really sorry. Yes, it was me. Okay, too worried about all these other screens in front of me. Okay, so next we are up to Inspire Awards. We are honored to present the Halton District School Board Inspire Awards this evening. So everyone in the Halton District School Board community can nominate or be nominated. Families, neighbors, related organizations, staff, students, and school volunteers. The Inspire Award is given to an individual or group that is formally or informally associated with the Halton District School Board, who support our students and their achievements through exemplary caring initiative, innovation, and creativity. Tonight we have 9 recipients to honor. Vice Chair Harrison will be running the presentation created by Heather Francie in the Communications Department. And before each presentation, I will name the recipient and the name of the trustee presenting. So first on the list is Alicia Kowalski from Pine Grove. And this award will be presented by Vice Chair Harrison.
Okay.
Hello. Let me tell you a little bit about Alicia. She's a teacher at Ecole Pine Grove Public School, and her passion and gift for teaching is seen through inspiration and enthusiasm. I have seen this. She's an extraordinary in her ability to captivate students' attention, whether it be in person or in a virtual environment. Parents also appreciate Alicia's patience and consideration for each student and their individual needs, while at the same time creating an inclusive learning environment where discussion on the importance of diversity is frequent. Her teaching style is genuine, as is her interest and the desire to learn. Amidst the uncertainty of this year and the inevitable technical difficulties, Alicia keeps calm and exerts a positive energy for students, and she is an example of
Congratulations. Our next recipient is Nicholas Paris from Udinawi Public School. Trustee Amos is to present this award.
Thank you. It's my honor to share this information about Nicholas Paris, who is a teacher at Udinawi Public School. Nicholas's dedication to inclusion is exemplary. He begins class each day by wishing every student in the class good morning and providing them with the opportunity to speak to the class. Students frequently tell their families about Mr. Paris's jokes and the humor he brings to the classroom, something that resonates profoundly with the students. He personifies passion and excellence in education and is deeply committed to each student's individual achievement. He demonstrates this through constructive feedback and by having students regularly set goals, an activity he participates in himself and shares with the class. Nicholas supports his students to aspire to go above and beyond their work to build confidence, inspire others, and embrace learning. He provides students with innovative, creative, and thoughtful activities that engage them to think critically and make an impact on the world. Congratulations, Nicholas.
Congratulations. Our next recipient is Christina Grant from Boyne Public School, and Trustee Garett will be presenting this award.
Thank you. It is my honor to present Christina Grant this award. Christina Grant is a teacher librarian at Boyne Public School. Christina provides incredible engaging opportunities to students in the library, such as author visits and makerspace activities, research support, and finding that just right book for every student. She supports newcomer students with language learning and a comprehension while fostering a love of reading for all students. Her compassion and creativity is demonstrated through the virtual reading sessions she provides to students. Called Live and Unmasked, students listen to stories about societal issues. These stories engage, enlighten, and empower students. Christina's passion, creativity, and humble nature is admired by fellow staff. Thank you for all that you do, Christina. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Christina. Our next recipient is Randy Potter, and he is from Charles R. Bowdoin Public School, which is one of my schools. So I will be presenting the award this evening. Randy Potter is a teacher at Charles R. Bowdoin Public School. Randy provides engaging activities and opportunities to meet the needs of a diverse group of students in his class. He is able to understand and inspire with complex learning needs by creating exceptional, engaging lessons and including parents in their child's learning. Randy infuses fun and joy into the classroom, which parents say visibly strengthens the sense of community. He assigns unique projects that engage and inspire students to work hard. Randy ensures there is structure for students in the classroom while enabling them to express their knowledge in their own way and providing opportunities to incorporate student voice in the classroom. Congratulations, Randy. And the next award is going to Sherry Best, also from Charles R. Baudouin Public School. And again, I will be presenting this award. Sherry Best is a special education resource teacher at Charles R. Baudouin Public School. She understands the needs of students with complex learning needs and develops solutions to support them and their families in their learning. Sherry comes up with unique solutions, such as finding new technologies to support each student's individual needs. She understands her students' learning styles and what they need to be comfortable at school. Parents say Sherry's kindness, competence, and compassion goes above and beyond. Congratulations, Sherry. The next award goes to Kimberly Mullen. She is part of the virtual secondary school, and the trustee that will be presenting this evening is Trustee Shuttleworth, because this nomination was for her role as a secondary LTO at Nelson High School.
Thank you. I'm honored and privileged to be able to present this award to Kimberly Mullen. Kimberly was a teacher, or is a teacher, at the virtual secondary school and was previously at Nelson High School. Each day, Kimberly made an effort to check in on the mental health of all her students. Her kindness and passion for teaching makes attending virtual school easier for her students because she makes them want to learn. She helps students learn and grow, not just in school, but in life as well. Kimberly teaches her students not to give up on their dreams and continue to work hard no matter what. She's an inspiration and positive influence for countless students. Kimberly continues to inspire her students day in and day out, along with everyone else around her. Her students see Ms. Mullen as teaching from and with her heart. Congratulations, Kimberly.
Congratulations. The next award recipient is Naomi Whitingham from White Oaks Secondary School, and Trustee Amos will be presenting the award this evening.
It's my honor to present this award to Naomi Whitingham, who is an educational assistant at White Oaks Secondary School. As a new EA to the Halton District School Board, Noreen has taken on the role of being a primary contact for students with special needs. She finds ways to incorporate students' interests into academic tasks and makes learning exciting and fun. She makes sure to include all students in activities to build community and to develop social skills. Noreen has fully immersed herself in all of the classrooms at the school, becoming a key support and resource for the classroom teacher. Noreen always helps brainstorm activities for the class based on students' interests, volunteers to help prep materials, and run activities. Noreen is a creative, caring person whose positivity spreads to those around her and helps make WAS classrooms a wonderful place to be. Congratulations, Noreen.
Congratulations. Our next award recipient is Emma Billiard Cross from the Virtual Elementary School East. This award will be presented by Trustee Rocha, as the nominator's home school is James W. Hill Public School.
Emma Billiard Cross is the teacher at the Virtual School Elementary East and was previously at James W. Hill Public School. Emma is very attentive to her students, continually checking in to see how they're progressing with their work by providing helpful checklists and adequate time and instruction to complete tasks. She goes above and beyond to ensure students are supported and have what they need to be successful. Emma always takes the initiative to help make virtual clubs possible, such as public speaking, creative writing, and chess. Very passionate and generous with her time, she coordinates fun activities such as creating a podcast. Emma makes everyone laugh with her jokes and puns, and her positivity is an inspiration to all. Congratulations, Emma, and thank you for all that you do.
Congratulations. And our final award for this evening goes to Tracy Fernandez. She's at Escarpment View Public School, and Trustee Danielle will be presenting the award.
Thank you. It is my honor to present this award to Tracy Fernandez. Tracy is a special education resource teacher at Escarpment View Public School. She is valued for her ability to connect with students and provide a supportive learning environment. A dedicated educator, she's admired for her organization, reliability, empathy, and ability to engage parents in their child's learning. Tracy is passionate about her role in supporting students, and it shows. Warm, compassionate, and enthusiastic with students, Tracy works hard to ensure students have what they need to be successful. Congratulations, Tracy, and thank you so much for all that you do.
Congratulations. So, congratulations to our Inspire Award recipients for your outstanding support for Halton District School Board student achievement and well-being. And a special thank you to Susan Thrasher in the director's office, who works every month to make sure trustees have all they need to assess nominees and provide a conduit of information. For everyone watching this evening, please do continue to nominate people or organizations who support our students and their achievements through exemplary, caring, initiative, innovation, and creativity. The nomination form is available on our website, hdsb.ca. As per our agenda, we have no presentations this evening. We do, however, have one delegation this evening. Manager Gortmaker is our delegation online this evening.
He is, Chair Gerbens. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mason, welcome. And before I get started, I need to review some information. So as per our delegation bylaw, a delegation shall be allowed for up to 5 minutes for the presentation to the board. Following the delegation, the chair will open the floor to trustees for up to 5 minutes for questions of clarification to either the delegate or to staff. I have a timer to help gauge your presentation length, and I will provide, when it gets to 4 out of 5 minutes, a little alarm will go off to let you know that you might want to start to wrap up. So please begin when you are ready.
Thank you. Well, good evening to all of you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Larry Masson, and I have been a proud resident of Milton for over 40 years. And even though Milton's identity has undergone a huge transformation with a surge in population recently, there is a tremendous pride of place in Milton, maybe even more so since the growth. And I'm here tonight to speak to the process of naming the new high school in Milton. A very close friend of mine, David Short, was nominated by hundreds of Miltonians, yet didn't make the final 3. I hope you've had time to read the package of documents and my letter to you, giving you the full explanation of my concern and that of many of the people you serve who nominated David Short High School as the new name for the school. Now, the criteria was set out by the Halton District School Board to reflect a positive and inspirational culture for students, honor an individual recognized across Canada, celebrate a renowned person of historical significance to Halton. But on the 22nd of March, Trustee Rocha had something in the Inside Halton, and it seems that the criteria were changed a little bit. It became geographical names, Indigenous names, residents of Halton, or reflection of what Canada wanted. Now, I'm not here to criticize or cast aspersion on the final 3. But as you will have seen in my written submission, the criteria for choosing seems to have changed. And you asked the community to engage in the naming process and then neglected the community involvement in the criteria change. And my deep disappointment is in not properly considering the voice of Milton as expressed by hundreds of nominations for David Short. And I found out just yesterday morning that actually there were 1,450 David Short nominations. 1,450. And I can't figure out how the committee could have overlooked 1,450 nominations for a teacher from this board who died while giving up his family time on school work to advance the interests of Milton students. And I don't think the people of Milton will like the look of this if an obscure non-Milton name is chosen or a generic like Rattlesnake Ridge. The naming of Ms. McGill and Mr. McCoy in the final three, I'm disappointed for the people of Milton. Neither ever had a connection to Milton whatsoever. They both had contributions to society, mostly in the US. But to say they were recognized across Canada is a stretch. And we're naming a school here in Milton. Ms. McGill was homeschooled for several years before attending mainstream schools at all. Mr. McCoy went to school in Scotland from the age of 15, and several years later became a mechanical engineer. And when he returned to North America, it was to join his family in Michigan. Neither case speaks very highly of the Canadian or provincial educational institutions. Yet we're contemplating naming a high school after him. And I just can't get my head around how the committee could pass over so many nominations. And I expect that no one on the committee or this Board of Trustees knows of David Short. And I'm wondering if there was any research for this name that brought in 1,450 nominations. Now, I was going to, during this time, I didn't realize I only had 5 minutes. I was going to go over the circumstances of his death again so that you would know what he was doing. And he had 3 students in his car, and both he and the other driver were killed when a transport truck veered out of the lane and killed them both. I was also going to highlight some of the comments by the students, but as I'm almost out of time, what I'm doing tonight is I'm asking this board to reconsider the name of the new high school in Milton and honor a Halton District School Board teacher who left such a positive impact on so many people before he died, trying to advance a program for high school students. And if you're unwilling or unable to relook at this and name this school in his memory, in spite of the 1,450 nominations, I ask you to reconsider renaming the school David Short taught at to be the David Short High School, and that was Milton District High School.
Mr. Mason, you're now over time, and I'm sorry I have to follow. Okay.
I understand.
Thank you very much. Now I'm opening the floor to trustees if they have any questions or of clarification, and that would be Trustee Garett. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Mason, you made a comment that there was likely a chance that people sitting on this board wouldn't know Mr. Short. I want you to know that there's 2 of us for sure that knew Mr. Short. And I want you to know my personal, when I sat on the committee for the naming, and his name was brought up by myself.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that you probably would remember David.
Thank you. The next question is Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Masson, for your presentation. My question actually, I think, is for the chair. So I'm just wondering, we followed the process, and right now we have a short list of 3. Can we expand our choice or not?
Unfortunately, due to the our policies and governance procedures, we have no opportunity to be able to expand our list. Our process allowed for community input, and then a committee of residents in Milton were convened, and they met 4 times with opportunities to consult with their community and came up with this list of short names. So unfortunately, we cannot change the list. We cannot change it in any way at this point.
Madam Chair, are there specific bylaws that state that this could not be put on hold and at the May meeting speak to it again?
Well, this is the meeting that we would make this decision. So it would, the committee has met and made their decision. My understanding is we do not have the opportunity to go back to the committee. I see Ms. Denton on the screen. Did you want to mention anything, Manager Denton? No? Okay. Oh, I see Trustee Rocha and then Trustee Collard.
Through the chair. And perhaps this is a question for Ms. Denton. Do we have anything memorializing Mr. David Short at Milton District High School or anywhere else on HDSB property?
Yes, I'm happy to respond through you, Chair, to all trustees. I was in contact with the principal of Milton District High School today, and I understand that there is a plaque in the front hall indicating that it is called the David Short Hall of Excellence, mentioning him as a teacher and coach and how admired and esteemed he was by all staff and students. So there is a plaque in the front hall, yes.
Okay, thank you. And Trustee Collard.
Thank you. To the presenter, we do have in our policy the ability for the public or actually anyone to request a name change of a school. And you have suggested that you perhaps would want Milton District High School to be renamed for this gentleman. If you wish to submit an application for the renaming of a school, you are more than welcome to do so. And the director and the chair will review your application. Unfortunately, we are bound by our policies to name the school this evening, but there's nothing precluding you from requesting the renaming of Milton District High School.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And there is one more speaker on the speakers list, and I believe this will take us to the 5 minutes that's in our policy. So Vice Chair Harrison, go right ahead.
Okay, sure. Through you, Madam Chair, to the speaker, I just want to acknowledge that I think you're our first delegate in this remote setting. So thank you for jumping in and being part of this. And I also just wanted to recognize and acknowledge that while you ran out of time to outline many wonderful qualities about your friend and the tragic circumstances of his death, I just want you to know that I and my colleagues did read through the materials that you submitted. So I certainly got a sense of the wonderful person that he was that way. So I just wanted to thank you for that information.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are no more speakers on the speakers list, and I just wanted to thank you this evening for for delegating the board. It is important that we hear the voices from our community, and it helps us to make decisions going forward. So thank you again for coming out. And you are, unfortunately, you can't stay in the Google Meet here, but you are welcome to continue watching on the live stream.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we will move up to consent agenda items. And Trustee Amos, would you like to make a motion to deal with the consent agenda this evening?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Gray, would you like to second?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to put the motion on the floor. Be it resolved that the Holt District School Board approve the consent agenda action items and receive the information items for April the 7th, 2021. Are there any items that need to be pulled for discussion this evening? I'll look to the speakers list. Seeing none. So I will then call, oh, there is no one showing up on the speakers list, but people are waving on the screen. So who needs to?
Tanya.
Okay, Trustee Rocha, go right ahead.
Sorry about all the waving. Yes, I'd like to pull the administrative procedure update.
Okay, you might as well go right ahead.
Okay. So the administrative procedure update refers to the flags admin policy, and through some work being done over the last months, I am aware that the flags board policy is due for review and is tentatively scheduled to be brought forward to the board in May. So I was wondering if this flags admin procedure could be brought to the board at the same time as the updated board's policy on flags.
Through your chair of events to Trustee Rocha, yeah, no problem. We'll pull it and we'll bring it back.
Thank you.
Okay, looking at the screen for any other madly waving people or to the speakers list. Trustee Oliver, go right ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Since we are talking about this policy, I'll throw in my question. When I was reading the steps outlined for the protocol around 2 polls or placing a second flag, I wondered, and this might only pertain to our JWS Center because I'm not sure how many other of our facilities actually have 2 polls. But if we want to add, if we have 2 polls, presumably it will always be the Canadian flag, and I'm guessing the Ontario flag. If we want to add a 3rd flag, is the Ontario flag then taken off, or is the 3rd flag suspended below the Ontario flag? And specifically when it comes to acknowledging June 21st, which is, I'm lacking the correct wording. Is it the Indigenous Acknowledgement Day?
Through your chair of events, we normally fly the Pride flag for the entire month of June, and then put the an Indigenous flag up on June 21st. Superintendent Podrebaric is involved with this. We generally take the Ontario flag down.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that, or ask whether this needs to be there needs to be a little bit more clarity as it pertains to specifically to 2 polls. And then
Superintendent Podrebaric?
Yeah, I'm happy to clarify. The Ontario flag actually isn't flown exterior to most of our schools. I'm not aware of any. It's displayed inside schools is where you'll see it, usually displayed in and around the main office area. So it's not a matter of lowering or raising the Ontario flag. It's generally the Canadian flag that flies. And just for further clarification, JWS is really the only site we have with the dual separate flagpoles. So second flags just go under as long as they're smaller than the Canadian flag, they would fly underneath it. The Indigenous flag, the Mississauga's flag is that all schools have is either displayed inside. It does not fly underneath the Canadian flag. Just to note the sovereignty of, and that's in consultation with our with our local Indigenous contacts.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are no more other speakers on the speakers list, so I'm going to call the question about approval of the consent agenda items. So all those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, next we are up to action items for April the 7th. We have 2 action items on the agenda for this evening. I'd like to draw your attention to item 4.2.1, short lists of names for Milton Southwest No. 1 High School, report 21046. Trustee Garett, as the trustee for the school, would you like to move this?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Rocha, as the other trustee on the naming committee, would you like to second?
Yes, I would.
Okay, great. So I'm going to read the recommendation. You will note that the last area is blank, and we are going to go through the process to fill in that blank, and then go through a process of amending the current recommendation to include the name that is chosen by the trustees at this table. So the recommendation is, be it resolved that the Halton District School Board name the new high school Milton Southwest No. 1 High School, located at 1410 Bronte Street South in Milton, blank. So Manager Denton, before we start talking about the names themselves, could you please briefly outline the process that was taken to narrow down the selection of names from the ones received in the initial call for submissions in the list that is in the report before us?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to all trustees. Yes, I would be happy to review the process. The committee made up of 2 trustees, as you know, the school principal, Mark Dooley, myself, Jackie Newton, and 4 parents from the feeder schools reviewed the 700 unique names. In total, about 4,000 names were submitted, but about 700 unique names. We met 4 times during February and March. And at the first meeting, we distributed the list and reviewed the admin procedure, and then for the next meeting, each individual brought forward the names that they wanted on the list. We worked through the additional 3 meetings to shortlist and discuss and research the names that you see before you tonight. There are a couple of other things since we last met in March that I can let you know, and that is that I was able to reach Elsie McGill's grandson, and he fully gave his support to have a school named after his grandmother. Concerning the name Elijah McCoy, I reached out to Natasha Henry, who is the president of the Black History Society of Ontario, and she contacted the Essex County Black History Research Society, and she was informed that Mr. McCoy did not have any direct descendants. He didn't have children with either of his 2 wives, and he, although he did have siblings, so there is possibly descendants, but there was no contact information through the Essex County Black Historical Society for them. And I think that is the information that you probably need to help you with your decision tonight.
Thank you. So I'm going to read. We're now going to follow the board selection of nominee process from the school naming and renaming board governance procedure adapted to the remote meeting environment. So the nominated names as they appear in the report are Rattlesnake Ridge, Elsie McGill, Elijah McCoy. I will now individually invite each trustee to indicate their support for one of the names proposed. All proposed names which have received support of at least one trustee will be considered on the short list and shall be eligible for selection by ballot as the board's nominee. So essentially, I'm going to call your name and please indicate one of the 3 school names that you would like to have on the ballot. So we will start with Trustee Amos.
I would like to consider Elijah McCoy.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Collard.
I would like to consider Elsie McGill.
Okay, thank you. And Trustee Danielle.
Well, Elsie McGill and Elijah have already gone forward. I would say Rattlesnake Ridge should be on the ballot, then all 3 of them.
Okay, well, I believe we can stop going through this process now because all 3 names have made it onto the ballot. So the following names will be on the ballot. Rattlesnake Ridge, Elsie McGill, and Elijah McCoy. So we will now vote by ballot to select a name for the motion to name the school. All trustees, including student trustees, must now email their selection to the Director of Education and please carbon copy the Associate Director so that he has a copy. The Director's email box will serve as the ballot box. When the Director has received all of the emails, he will read aloud each email, including the preferred school name and the name of the trustee. This will be recorded in the minutes. Student trustees cast votes. However, their vote is counted as per our regular board meeting process. The school name supported by a majority of the ballots, which needs to be 6, shall be declared the board's nominee to be considered for approval by resolution of the board. Should none of the names receive the support of a majority of the ballots, the school name with the least number of votes shall be eliminated, and another ballot shall be taken in the same manner as the previous ballot. This process shall be repeated until one name has received the support of a majority of the ballots. Where there are only 2 shortlisted names or only 2 shortlisted names remaining, they each receive the same number of votes, the Director will use the method to randomly select the name. We shouldn't have this issue as all 11 trustees are at the table this evening. Okay. So, in the event that the name supported by the greatest number of ballots nevertheless did not receive the support of the majority, the 2 or more shortlisted names with the least number of ballots receive the same number, the 2 names shall be placed in a box and the Director shall draw one name, which shall be the name eliminated from the shortlist. The ballots shall then be recast, repeating the procedure described previously until such time as a name receives the support of a majority of trustees present. Does everybody have that understanding? So I know it's very long. So what we need to do is email your selection to the Director and the Associate Director. Yes, go right ahead.
Is it possible to have a discussion around the names before we vote?
Oh, yes.
I know for myself, may I speak? I'm sorry.
Yes, you may. And that is absolutely a very valid thing to say. So if you would like to start, go right ahead.
I'm going to be honest with you. This is an extreme struggle for me. And I'm torn between the number of Miltonians. Just when Mr. Masson was talking about how many people put David Short's name forward, I know a significant number of people put forward Dr. Aikenhead, Michael Ledwith, outstanding Miltonians. I'm torn between recognizing that and also realizing that, and I don't think many people realize, but the parents that were on the naming committee are parents of the children who will be attending this school. So when they say that we have not heard from Miltonians, we did. We heard from the Miltonians who will be attending the school. So I'm torn between the two, because this is one of the hardest things I think we ever do, because we're picking a name that will be on the side of that building for decades. And we're looking for something that will inspire not only the students of today and the teaching staff and the principal of today, but 40 years from now will still continue to inspire a principal, a teaching staff that after we're all long and gone. So there's a lot of responsibility for this, and it's weighing very heavily on me. I'd be very interested to know what my fellow colleagues, my trustees, are thinking around the names, and if they had any thoughts, because it is one that I'm struggling with quite mightily.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Rocha, you were on the list.
Through the chair, thank you, Trustee Danielle, for raising that point. Being the outside trustee on the naming committee for this high school, I can tell you that we did consider all of the criteria in our policy, including local Miltonians. And I think at the end of the day, why these names made it all the way to our shortlist and they were brought forward were because, at least in respect to the two individuals, that they represent what we hope to encourage in our students. I'll speak to Elsie McGill, who was an engineer, a woman for that matter, at a time when there were no women engineers. So it goes to show and inspire our young students that a woman can be an engineer. But not only that, is that the program, the STEM program is going to be offered at this high school. So it was a great tie-in to have that. And the same for Elijah McCoy. Again, the inventions and the science behind that. So those two names in particular really stood out and stood all of the rounds of us removing names, or that there were two names that would inspire students, especially those in the STEM program. And I think with the name Rattlesnake Ridge, we were very cognizant that people did want the option to name a school not after a person in light of things that happen in the media. So as a committee member, I could tell you that the members considered many factors, and at the end of the day, they were proud to put forth these three names.
Okay, thank you. And Trustee Garett, you're on the list.
Thank you. As everyone knows, I sat on the committee, and of course, this new high school is going to be in my ward. So it was, I took this very seriously. And when we had the 4,000 names, the committee members were supposed to shortlist and you know, look at all the names and really take it seriously. I did, and you know, I'm going to be honest. Some of the local, former local Miltonians, important Miltonians, were on my shortlist. I would be remiss if I didn't add them, and I knew most of them. So one of the things that really showed up a lot in the 4,000 submissions was that a lot of people didn't want it named after a human being. So, you know, I made sure that Rattlesnake was one of the names that came forward, so that it's a geographic thing. And you know, I think that's important. Try to cover it, to try and appease and please as many people as we can in our community. And, you know, one of the things that I consider is that, yes, when we open the school, it's going to have an ISTEM program, but programs change. over time, programs, it's ISTEM this go around, but who knows, what it's going to be, what kind of programming it's going to be in 10 years. So we need to pick something that is going to stand the test of time, as my colleague, Trustee Danielle, said. So those are my 2 cents worth for what they are.
Okay, thank you very much. Oops. Just looking to the speakers list. There are no, Trustee Gray, go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Gerbents. My speaker list button isn't working to allow me to signal, so thank you for your indulgence. Trustee Danielle has asked that the trustees here give a little bit of input into how they're thinking at this point, just before we take the official vote. I like what I heard from Trustee Garett, and that was the notion of a lasting impact. And I think that I see the notion of having a school named after a geographic area, something that will be a forever. I see too, I heard that when you sit in the cafeteria of this brand new, beautiful school, that you in fact will be looking towards the escarpment and Rattlesnake Point. So there is that natural sort of connection to the geography of the area. I initially had concerns about a rattlesnake. It's not one of my favorite reptiles. If I had a favorite reptile, but that being the case, and in learning that the rattlesnake notion, even as it was awarded to Rattlesnake Point, was not about the snake itself, but rather about the indentations and the striations and the escarpment, that made sense for me and gave me calmness, because I have hiked up in that area, and it made me feel a lot better about that. But at the end of the day, as everyone has stated so far, I just have to amplify what has been said so far. It's such a very, very big decision. And I'm like many of the trustees who have done that extra digging in behind the names, in addition to the information that was provided to us by the communications department. I took some time to do some digging about these 2 other individuals, as well as digging about Rattlesnake Point and the whole geographic area. So I feel fairly confident that I have in my mind the name that I want to support, and I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Collard, you're next on the list.
Thank you. So it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do with this one. It was difficult. But once I made up my mind, then I felt quite sure that I'd picked a good name. And the process that I went through was starting by reviewing the information that we got from Ms. Denton. And then I did some online research. I looked up the 2 individuals, looked up information about the patents of Elijah McCoy and the work of Elsie McGill. And I looked up the geography of Rattlesnake Ridge. And I thought to myself, I personally can't get past the name Rattlesnake. It just, I know that it doesn't refer to the Massasauga Rattler, but I'm concerned that it will cast a shadow over things like the mascot for the school, and I do have concerns that it will not reflect positively on the school. And so then I looked further at the 2 names, and I was reminded that our school, while we quite often feel that a woman is worthy of being named for an elementary school, we do not have one high school in our board named for a woman. And this woman became an engineer at a time in which women were not engineers. And I fully support that name. And that's how I came to my conclusion. The two individuals on par with each other. I couldn't just choose based on that. I had to find something special, and that's what I did.
Okay. So there's no other speakers on the speakers list, but I am going to say something. As Trustee Danielle is seeking some input from colleagues, I too, I'll put it out there, I'm in favor of Elsie McGill. And a lot of it has to do with, within our policy, we talk about equity and diversity. And as Trustee Collard says, we do not have a single woman named for high school in our board. It feels condescending to me that is the case. That we say, it's okay to name an elementary school after a woman. But boy, when we get to high schools, women just aren't good enough. And that makes me really sad. And so I was really happy to see Elsie McGill. And also, as someone who works in a very male-dominated field in the IT field, it's inspiring for our young women to see other women, to see those that have come before us actually take that really brave step and do things outside of the norm. So I am fully behind Elsie McGill. There are no other speakers. No one's popped on after me. So we will now go through the process. And I'm sorry, people watching online, but we will probably go silent for a few minutes as this is happening and until Director Miller and Associate Director Bogue receive all the ballots from all the trustees. So just a reminder, Director Miller, that you will be receiving them. You will be reading out both the name of the selected school name and the name of the trustee.
Yep. Thank you, Chair Drabentz. By all means, send me the names now.
I'd like to express my thanks to my colleagues for being so upfront with their decisions. It did help. It's still very, very difficult.
Chair Gabence,
Go right
are
ahead.
you ready?
Yes.
I will just read, I will only read I won't read any of the other. I'll just read the author, the trustee's name, and their choice. Okay. Trustee Gray, Elsie McGill. Trustee Reynolds, Rattlesnake Ridge. Trustee Windalankara, Elsie McGill. Trustee Oliver, Rattlesnake Ridge. Vice Chair L. Harrison, Elsie McGill. Trustee Collard, Elsie McGill. Trustee Taylor, Elsie McGill. Trustee Danielle, Elsie McGill. Trustee Shuttleworth, Elsie McGill. Trustee Garett, Rattlesnake Ridge. Trustee Amos, Elijah McCoy. Trustee Rocha, Elsie McGill. Can you count that up? Because I had a million other emails all coming in at the same time.
I think you missed Chair Gabence, Stuart.
Oh, Chair Gabence, Elsie McGill.
Okay, so in my
I prefer to be in the boardroom. This is easier.
Okay, so I have 3 votes for Rattlesnake Ridge. I have 7 votes for Elsie McGill, and I have 1 vote for Elijah McCoy. Please correct me if I am wrong.
That's Chair Gabence. I will ask, that's what I have. Associate Director Bogue, is that what you have?
Correct.
Okay, so the name going forward to vote to amend. And the 2 student trustees both voted for Elsie McGill. So now we move forward to amend the original motion. So Trustee Garett, as trustee for the school, would you like to make the motion to amend the motion, the original motion, to include the name Elsie McGill?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Danielle, as the other trustee in Milton, would you like to second this motion?
Thank you. Yes, I will.
Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment to include the name Elsie McGill at the end of the original motion. So all those in favor? We are just missing 1, and I am there this time. Please check if you've hit submit. Oh, there we go. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. So now we're going back to the original motion that we will vote on. So I will read the final resolution. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board name the new high school Milton Southwest No. 1 High School, located at 1410 Bronte Street South in Milton, Elsie McGill. All those in favor? Just one more. There we go, and that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We now have a new high school named Elsie McGill in Milton. It's excellent. Okay, next we are moving on to 422, which is the Governance Committee report 21056. And this was submitted by Trustee Rocha, Trustee Shuttleworth, and Trustee Collard. Trustee Rocha, would you like to move this item?
Yes, I would, please.
Excellent, thank you. And Trustee Collard, would you like to second?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Okay, and just a note that there was some adjusting of the motion today. So it's a substituted motion after, so I will put it on the floor. This was submitted by Trustee Rocha as an alternative motion. So be it resolved that a governance standing committee be struck to oversee and review governance documents and processes, and that the members currently serving on the ad hoc governance committee shall continue to serve until the next annual striking committee process, and that the committee will report to the board no less than twice per academic year and more frequently depending on the workload. So before I open
the motion was revised, and this was done in order to comply with our governance procedures for board committees. So it really wouldn't look good if we're proposing a governance committee and we didn't follow our own procedures. So now that we are following our own procedures, as you know, an ad hoc committee was created earlier this year to assess our board's policies. Recommendations were presented at the February Committee of the Whole, and some work has been completed since then. Developing and maintaining board policies are trustee duties, and this also includes governance procedures and bylaws. Consequently, we are recommending that a standing committee be formed and that the name of the committee be Governance Standing Committee. Some of the committee's responsibilities will include determining which policies and procedures need to be reviewed, making updates, recommending a policy review process, etc. Essentially, it will look at ensuring that our policies, governance procedures, and bylaws are up to date and compliant with our own board framework policy. Trustees Collard, Shuttleworth, and myself will continue to be members of this committee, and there is room for 2 more eager trustees to join us. And there will be opportunities to join some subcommittees that will be created this year. So with that, thank you for your time. And if there are any questions, or if Trustee Collard or Shuttleworth want to add anything, no, they're shaking their heads no. So I will open the floor to any questions if there are any.
So I'm looking to the speakers list, and Trustee Oliver is there. Go right ahead, Trustee Oliver.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair. I want to thank this committee for the report and for the recommendation. I too felt that while the move to Committee of the Whole was a good one, we always found something needed to be addressed around governance documents or processes. And so it makes sense to have a committee dedicated to that with and trustees who are truly interested in furthering and overseeing that kind of work. So while we managed to do that through ad hoc committees, it is wise to have a dedicated committee of this kind. So I will be voting in favor of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And looking to the speakers list, I do not see any other speakers at this time. So all those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. That is wonderful. Okay. What time is it? Okay. Next, we are up to communications to the board. First off is student trustee reports. Trustee Vigilankara and Trustee Taylor, do you have a report for us this evening?
We do.
Excellent. Go right ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Trustee Vigilankara and I hope everyone's doing well tonight. The major focus for us the past few weeks has been our subcommittees. Tonight, we will be providing an update on the activities of the mental health, graduation, sports, and equity subcommittees. Currently, the mental health subcommittee, led by Abiha Gandal and Katie McDonald, are working on a widespread initiative to create a video talking about how to deal with loved ones and other people going through mental health issues. This video will be 5 to 10 minutes long and be sent to every classroom in the HSP. Furthermore, they are going to introduce a mental health poster making contest at the end of the video to further promote resources and bring students in the community together during these difficult times. The winner will have their poster encouraged to be posted across schools in the HSP. Our grad committee had also been working hard the last month developing a proposal to the board regarding graduation and ceremony options. This past week, they heard back from the board as to what options were approved for elementary and high school students. For elementary, each ceremony must include the following: an online portion recognizing all graduates. For virtual school students to be included in their homeschool graduations, they must follow all interaction protocols, i.e. masks and social distancing, and they must cohort by classes for a filmed aspect that will take place during school hours. And they must also include the director video in the online portion. They may include awards, banners or signs, grad photos, grad memorabilia, delivery of grad gifts, and a drive-by grad, with a few things to consider being equity, communication with other schools, communication with police, and in this instance, the graduate will get out of their car, grab their diploma, take a picture, and get back into the car, and those options are up to the discretion of the principal. Ceremonies may not include an outdoor ceremony, a grad dance, food or snacks, an indoor celebration, and they may not have parents, friends, or spectators. For high school students, each ceremony must include a virtual commencement, slideshows with each student picture name. The picture waiver must be signed. They must have virtual secondary students included in their homeschool graduation as well. They must have a valedictorian video, teacher principal addresses, the director video. They cannot charge for anything except for grad pictures, and they must have billboards that congratulate all HDSB 2021 graduates. Principals may include the following options: MC addresses, grad quotes, a live virtual event over Google Meet, individual awards, grad memorabilia such as yearbooks or gradware, grad boxes including cap and gown, banners, congratulatory lawn signs, regrouping in the fall for the grad lunch, and the drive-by grad with the same considerations as the elementary. Ceremonies may not include the following: they cannot plan to host a full graduation in the fall, they cannot have an outdoor grad on a field, they cannot have school sponsors charging students or families to buy anything, they cannot have a prom, and they cannot have a virtual prom. There will be one more graduation working group meeting to plan and write a letter to the board for listening to their voices and taking their ideas into consideration.
Our sports subcommittee, led by secondary senators Lucas Simonovich and Will Kiproff, has been very busy as well. They have met with both the mayor of Burlington and the mayor of Oakville, who showed massive support for their cause and invited them to be on their weekly online show. They also met with the Public Board Council President and social media manager of the Ontario Student Trustees Association. They were offered the chance to present to the rest of the Executive Council and possibly speak to OBSPA. They have now requested a meeting with MPP Jane McKenna and are hoping to meet with her soon, and after that possibly progress towards speaking with the Minister of Education. So as for an equity committee subcommittee update, over the past month, the equity subcommittee, which is led by secondary student senators Anjana Sudarshan, Anikta Sahi, and Sabrina Nadeem, have been consistently meeting each week to work on a few projects discussed with the Senate. The first project we began was our period poverty letter, and the letter is meant to be sent to the Government of Ontario to pitch the HDSB Student Senate support for provincially funding menstrual products in all schools in Ontario. Our planning process began with discussion and communication, communicating with the students on the topic, and we were able to meet with 2 students who were actually running the Pink Project in Burlington to hear their perspectives and gain input. Through this process, the team was able to collaborate and learn, as well as support fellow students of the HDSB. The team also conducted a survey within the Senate to assess the access of menstrual products in schools across the board, which would serve as support for the letter. After brainstorming and writing, we have drafted a letter to be reviewed by myself and Trustee Taylor, as well as our trustee mentors, staff advisors, and hopefully eventually the Board of Trustees. The second project that the Student Senate Equity Subcommittee has taken on is the creation of a document with recommendations for equity meetings, or what many students call trilogy meetings in both elementary and secondary schools across the board. So the idea with these meetings is for each school to understand how they can implement consistent meetings between students, staff, and parents, hence the term trilogy, discussing inequities and issues within their school environment, and then plans of action. So the short but thorough document will aim to describe what the meetings are, how they work, their structure, and their importance in a completely student led format. So it'll be written by students so that it can eventually be read by students. We hope to inspire schools to work to integrate trilogy meetings into their schools over the summer and for the next year. Although it is in its rough form, as of now, the document is planned to be finished in May. So the third and final project that this committee has taken on is the Harmful and Discriminatory Language Protocol in Action project. That's a working title. This idea was suggested by elementary student Senate representatives, and who hope to educate students about the harm and consequences of using discriminatory language in a visual video form that may have a better chance of actually reaching students. So this could be an informative video that's posted to social media or like YouTube, for example. So despite efforts to stop the use of derogatory language, there have still been instances reported in our school board. So we hope to use our platform to reach out to students in a relatable and creative method. The video also has a deadline of June, with the hopes of it being shared for a more equitable school year in the fall. While these are the major goals of the Equity Subcommittee, we continue to reach out to students, create posters to share with senators regarding equity days and challenges, and also continue to hold valuable discussions with senators to take back to their school communities. And we hope to achieve our goals and work towards a more equitable HDSB. So the last update is pertaining to the annual Halton Youth Leadership Symposium, which we are currently finalizing a date for. It will likely be held in the last week of May, and at our next Student Senate meeting, we'll continue to plan the workshops for this event. And our next Student Senate meeting will be on April 27th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Trustees are welcome to attend, and a meeting link will be shared. I would also like to note that we are hoping to hold a second Student Senate meeting this month in order to continue planning for HYLS. Once that's decided, that link will also be shared with trustees. And finally, we wish our peers and staff a wonderful spring break. It's a long overdue and definitely well-deserved break. So thank you for listening to our detailed report tonight. We will now take any questions trustees may have.
Wow, thank you very much for that incredibly fulsome report. I think that might have been your longest one. But lots of great things going on. Looking to the speakers list, Trustee Rocha, go right ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to Trustees Vidialankara and Taylor. I may have missed this because you gave us so much great information. When you spoke about the grad options, did that include elementary, like grade 8 graduations? Okay, I see Trustee Vidialankara and Taylor shaking their heads. Okay, great. And then the other question, or maybe more of a request, you have so much great information. I wasn't able to write it all down. Would you be able to share what you read with us via email? Yeah? Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry, I think this might have sped through my bit too, so I can definitely share.
Sure. Even if it's just bullet point form, don't make it formal. Don't put your, I know it's a tough time of the year for students, so wrapping everything up for the quadmester. So excellent. Trustee Amos, you're up next.
Thank you very much for both of your reports. So much great things happening with Student Senate and Student Voice. One of the things I don't know, to me it felt missing was a lot of times trustees are involved in graduation ceremonies at high school level and at even at the elementary level. And I just wondered if it's because student senators don't understand what trustees do and how that we're part of trying to celebrate all the great things, that we're not part of that, and wondered maybe if there should be a teachable moment from some of the trustee mentors about some of the things that trustees get involved in and how we help support you. Just a thought. And I also noticed, I think it was under the mental health initiative that they were going to reach out to MPP in Burlington. There is also another couple of MPPs in Oakville that may also be able to help you try to connect to the Minister of Education. So just as an awareness piece, and maybe because those student members may be from Burlington, so they may not be aware of the others. So just wanted to make that something that maybe they could reach out, because the more they have involved, the better for your support. So anyways, thanks for all the great work you guys are doing.
Yes, looking to the speakers list, we have no other speakers at this time, but thank you very much for your, again, very thorough report. And I think some of your initiatives feel very solid. So thank you. Okay, I am going to call a recess until 8:30. So see you all back then. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Feels like a television show. Anyways, so we're up to action items for the next meeting on April the 21st. Sometimes we have items with established criteria that need to come to the board table more than one time. The first time is for information, and the second time is for consideration for approval. We have one item that meets the criteria at this time, and that is that is the school year calendar. And that's the school year calendar report 21051, submitted by Associate Director Bogue. Go right ahead, Associate Director Bogue.
Thank you, Chair Gerbents, and through you to trustees. This is the proposed school year calendar for next school year. Special thanks to the School Year Calendar Committee who helped vet these dates. And in particular, thanks to Trustees Danielle and Garett, who were trustee reps on the committee. For trustees who've not sat on that committee, what typically happens is the staff prepares a draft calendar. We do that in consultation with the Halton Catholic District School Board to look at proposed dates for PA days and the winter and spring breaks, those kinds of things. And we share them with the committee and allow the committee to vet those dates and critique them and provide feedback. And so that's what has happened. We take that feedback back again and do some further thinking and make necessary revisions. What you'll see is the calendar that is presented is modeled after this year's calendar with a couple of slight changes. Instead of having 3 PA days at the very beginning of the school year, we are suggesting 2. The 3 PA days this year was unusual and was really in preparation for all the changes that were required due to the pandemic. And we thought 2 next year, still a little bit of uncertainty around what next year will look like. 2 probably made some sense. And that third day is back to just before the Thanksgiving long weekend, which is traditionally where we've had a PA day. And the other little change is, and this is something new, we've for many, many years had a PD day in February. That's sort of the turnaround time between semester 1 and 2 in our high schools. We found that it has been a real challenge for our elementary schools to get their report cards completed, checked over, and sent out to parents in the window required of us by the Ministry of Education. And so the one slight change for next year is that elementary PD day is a week earlier in January. So they've split apart the secondary and elementary PD days. The rest of the dates are more or less aligned with where we landed this year. And you may also notice that in the from a secondary perspective, it is a semestered calendar. Should the public health situation warrant, we might have to relook at potential quadmesters and those other kinds of things, but we're optimistically anticipating a more normal looking school year calendar for next year. So I'm happy to answer any questions that trustees might have.
Thank you very much for this report. I am looking to the speakers list. And I don't see any speakers at this time. Oh, Trustee Reynolds, I see your finger is up. Oh, there it is. You've shown up on the list. Go right ahead.
So sorry about that, through the chair. Yeah, I would just like to, if you wouldn't mind sharing how the committee considered the assortment of religions and special days of observances and celebrations when selecting the school breaks and holidays, as well as staff professional activity days. And could you tell us whether any Indigenous ceremony days were also considered, factored in when you were selecting the dates?
Thanks, Trustee Reynolds. Through the chair to you and all trustees. A couple of things. One is we have a variety of different stakeholders on that school calendar committee. One particular group is from our equity department, so we've got eyes on those days of significance. We have a guideline that was developed in consultation with the different faith groups called Days of Particular Significance, because as you can imagine, there are quite a number of different days of significance, and a number of them, for lack of a better word, have a bit of a higher profile. So those days of particular significance, those are looked at and vetted for any kinds of conflicts as we develop the calendar. One thing you may note is that for the proposed calendar for next year, Rosh Hashanah actually occurs on September 7th and 8th, the very first 2 days of the school year, which is unfortunate. It typically happens sometime in September. And we would have a small number of staff and students that likely will not be at school those days. And in terms of the break days, Trustee Reynolds, I think you asked about the breaks. Those are suggested by the Ministry of Education. We don't usually alter those. There is an opportunity to alter those if we choose. The committee did not see a reason to do that, and they've been vetted up front through the ministry, and so we've kept with those days. Around Indigenous days of ceremony and those kinds of things, we don't have any of those dates specifically noted in our guideline, because each of the nations tends to observe different days. There's not a consistent national or provincial days that are recognized. So those happen over the course of the year with different nations observing different days. So that one is a little bit more challenging for us to deal with. Where schools become aware of dates that aren't on that particular days of significance guideline, they do certainly problem solve and work through those with individual student situations that arise. And I'm just, to make sure I've covered that, I'm just wondering if Superintendent Etoff, if I've missed anything, he may also want to weigh in, because as I said, we always have an equity representative on that committee as well. Superintendent Etoff, have I missed anything?
Yes, no, I think that's a pretty thorough response, David. Associate Director Bowe. I guess the only added piece around Indigenous groups is with respect to exactly what you said. You know, how they observe their culture is somewhat independent, and we know of particular groups and individuals in our boards, for example, who would be observing particular days in the fall as part of the fall hunt. But you know, again, those aren't necessarily particular identified days, but would be very much based on the circumstance of the groups that they identify with.
Follow up, please.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. And thank you to the committee for their consideration. So just to go back to the days of the observance for Rosh Hashanah, and perhaps the days where students would be missing school then, or perhaps for other reasons of religious observance, how do the schools sort of communicate or to the families or to the students who are missing school? Like, what is kind of the messaging that our board sends out that students, might be away during these days and they have valid reasons? Is there any sort of do we give any proactive communications to the families or to the schools to give to the families? Like, what I'm trying to get at is, that students feel completely welcome to participate in their observations, and that they will be, not adversely impacted for missing school during that time and coming back. So I just wanted to give some sort of maybe confirmation to families who might be listening, who are looking at this calendar and already thinking, I'm going to be missing some more school here. So just to give them some confidence and comfort of mind that we are well aware of what holidays are, students potentially celebrating. And although we're not observing them in our calendar, what kind of accommodations or communications would they be receiving?
Thanks, Trustee Reynolds. I'll look to Superintendent Etoff to provide a response there.
Yes, within our a document, a resource document that we provide to the system, and Associate Director Bogue has referenced it, are particular days of significance, which are different than our broad days of significance calendar, which is very comprehensive. The particular days of significance, we have worked with our religious leaders and faith leaders to identify those particular days which schools should try and avoid. And so, for example, Rosh Hashanah would be typically one of those days where we should be trying to avoid a particular events and special activities, both during the day and in the evening. With some of the holidays that are noted, or some of those dates, it would just be for the evening, or and possibly just for the day. So, like, for example, with respect to Rosh Hashanah, one of the accommodations that we would provide as a board and schools would note is, and we wouldn't necessarily have it in this particular case on the first 2 days of school, but to avoid having tests on those days, having exams on those days, having special events, like fairs and other special activities, special presentations within the school on these particular days, like Rosh Hashanah. Schools should be avoiding that and planning it in advance using inclusive design in order to accommodate to the best of our ability.
Super, thank you very much.
Okay, the next speaker on the speakers list is Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to both, I think, Associate Director Bogue and Superintendent Etoff. So by and large, all of the days that we have as holidays are given secular names. So we have winter break versus associating it with Christmas. However, there's still the Good Friday and Easter Monday. So I'm just kind of wondering how do we determine that is still seen as that Christian religious holiday versus all the others that are somewhat devoid of a relationship to a particular group? I think it's for you, Rob.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead. Jump in here. Absolutely. You've actually raised a really interesting point, Trustee Shuttleworth, and we've actually had individuals, staff within our board that have raised this. Particular days of significance for them within their faith, and have felt sometimes in our descriptions that we are secularizing them while being possibly more observant of other faiths and other religions. So, as the trustees know, we have Equity and Inclusive Education Advisory Equity Advisory Steering Committee, and that group meets on a regular basis. And one of the topics that we have brought forward in the past is this particular document, and we plan to bring it forward at a coming meeting to actually discuss this particular topic, because while we do not have every different group necessarily represented on that committee, we certainly have many, and look to deliberate further on this particular issue. So thank you for raising it.
Yeah, follow up. So it's just for me quite striking when I look at this, and there's Canadian holidays, and then there's Good Friday and Easter Monday, which is specific to the Christian calendar. Whereas there is no other holidays that are associated with a particular religious affiliation. And I just kind of think that might be something that needs to be reviewed.
Okay. Okay. So next on the list was actually Trustee Gray. She keeps getting bumped down the list as it goes. Sorry, Trustee Collard. Do you have a point of order, or what are you trying to do?
I wanted to respond to Trustee Shuttleworth. Statutory holidays are made by the provincial and federal governments, and they call them Good Friday and Easter Monday. And that's probably why our calendar reflects that, because they are statutory holidays. Christmas falls within the winter break, so we can call it the winter break without calling it the Christmas break, because it's a 2-week period that just so happens to have a lot of different holidays fall within it. It's a little bit more difficult to escape the words Good Friday and Easter Monday, because those are actual statutory holidays.
Okay. Trustee Gray, go right ahead.
Thank you very much. My question has now been answered.
Okay. Trustee Rocha, go right ahead.
Yeah, through the chair to Associate Director Bogue. Are we aware of any boards who have delayed the start of the upcoming school year due to Rosh Hashanah? And if so, what was the rationale? And third part is based on us collecting student census this year, I think we'll have a better understanding of the makeup of our student population. And will that, the results from that, the census, perhaps steer future holidays?
Through the chair to Trustee Rocha, thanks for that question. Boards are a little bit all over the map with their school year calendars. There are some boards that have front and loaded some PED days up front, even more than 2. There may be some that have 3 or even 4 up front. Others not. So there's no consistent approach here. Each board designs their calendar to suit their particular board's best interests. I believe there is a board. Oh, the other piece I should just mention is we have to be account for all days between September 1st and June 30th within the calendar. So we have limited flexibility that way, but we do have the flexibility that you could put more PA days or PD days, I'm sorry, up front, for example, and have them on the 7th and 8th of September, rather than perhaps April and Thanksgiving, where you know that there might be some kids that are off, for example. And I think there is a board or 2 out there that have done that, and they may be boards that have a higher Jewish population than our board does. There is a downside, though, and there's always the challenge when we're looking at PD days and some of the other days of significance, because we value those PD days for opportunities for our staff to learn. And so if staff are observing that religious day, they may be off and would miss that learning. And we balance that with some of our students being off and then missing a day of learning. So there's always that kind of tug and pull around those particular days. But in answer to your question, I think there is at least one board, I believe, that has put PD days on the 7th and 8th because of that exact reason. So they would have some students that aren't missing school, but they would have some staff that would be missing the learning on that day, on those days.
Chair of Events, yes, can I just respond to that? Trustee Rocha, that's York District School Board has done what Associate Director Bogue has done. As you may be aware, there's a significant Jewish population in the York District School Board, so they have done that.
Okay. Trustee Collard, I just want to make sure that you don't have any further questions or anything from the speakers list.
No, I just wanted to respond to Trustee Shuttleworth.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, excellent. So there are no other speakers on the speakers list to this topic. So thank you very much, Associate Director Bogue, for this report, and we look forward to seeing it on April the 21st for decision. Okay, so now we're moving up to 5.3. We have 4 items. for information this evening. The first is 351 AODA Annual Accessibility Status Report, report number 21052, submitted by Superintendents Etoff and Taha. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Through the chair to the Board of Trustees, Superintendent Taha and I are pleased to present to you the 2019-2020 AODA Annual Accessibility Status Report. The report highlights the progress of the HDSB over the course of the previous school year in addressing the accessibility of HDSB workplaces and learning spaces. The HDSB Accessibility Coordinating Committee, which is composed of representatives from various groups and departments, including SEAC, Facilities, Human Resources, Equity, Student Services, and includes principal reps as well as a trustee rep. They meet on a regular basis to review the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act regulations and standards, including customer service regulation and the built environment and integrated standards. The report included in the package outlines updates and accomplishments from the previous school year. Please note that the report would normally be shared with the board following sharing with SEAC, usually early in the year, in the fall, but this past year has been delayed due to complications and the implications of the pandemic. Following the presentation this evening, this status report will be posted, as it always is, on the board website under the category of accessibility. Superintendent Taha and I'd be happy to take any questions on the AODA Annual Accessibility Status Report.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to look to the speakers list. And I'm going to look to my screen just because some people are having trouble with technology this evening. But seeing none. So thank you very much for your report. Okay, so the next item is 532 Budget Survey Stakeholder Input Results, Report 21053, submitted by Superintendent Ngoy. Go right ahead.
Thank you, and for you, Madam Chair, to all trustees. We have a report on the stakeholder consultation for the, no?
You're sounding a bit like a robot. You're back to that. You had some good months.
I'll be back.
Okay. Superintendent Ngoy has left the meeting and will re-enter the meeting, hopefully without a robotic voice. So go right ahead, Superintendent Ngoy.
Is this better? Perfect. All right. Through the chair to all trustees, I'm pleased to present the 2021-2022 budget survey results. The survey was provided or open to the public between February 12th and March 5th. We've received almost 1,800 responses, which is higher than last year. Last year, we were just shy of 1,500 responses. I'm also happy to report that thanks to our student trustees, we've tripled the amount of students who have provided a response this year compared to last year. So it's been really great to hear their voice in terms of input and initiatives for the budget. As you'll see throughout the report, as well as Appendix A, we have structured the budget survey to address the main priorities in the strategic plan, in the multi-year plan. And the results have come out in different themes that address those strategic priorities. And the themes include curriculum and instruction, practices and processes that have been recommended, resource allocation suggestions, and some initiatives to consider. In terms of some of the items under curriculum and instruction, there was a lot of comments with regards to building a diverse collection of resources, prioritizing math and literacy, and investing in art, as well as other programs. From a practice and processes perspective, there was comments around the awareness and protocols around anti-racism, bullying, discrimination, equity and inclusion comments in particular, as well as providing support for students that would transition to in-person learning after the current year. In terms of resources, some of the comments were with regards to support staff, mental health professionals, as well as professional development for staff and students, and awareness for staff and students with regards to diversity, anti-racism, as well as creating a sense of community within schools as we emerge from the pandemic. Some of the initiatives that have come forward, which are interesting, are also focusing on things that we could do more inclusively and more diverse events to consider as we come back and we start the next year, as well investing in speakers to increase that awareness for diversity. And looking at some of the spaces in schools, as well as introducing students to various career opportunities and some other programming. Our senior team, as well as our staff, are looking in detail at the comments that have been provided by the respondents as we build the budget for next year. As well as you will see a lot of these comments surfacing in the strategies for the operational plan for next year that will support the multi-year plan and be the basis for our budget. And I'd be happy to take any questions trustees may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know I found this report very interesting, how everything themed out. Yeah. So I'm looking to the speakers list to see if there's any speakers. Nobody waving on the screen. Excellent report. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next report is 522, Provision of Menstrual Products in Schools, Report 21054. And this is presented by Superintendent Garett and Human Rights and Advisory Officer, Dr. Julia Mullen. Go right ahead.
Good evening, through the chair to trustees. I'll begin with some high-level comments, and then I will turn to Executive Officer Garett to speak to you about logistics around implementation, if that's all right. So this report actually aligns quite nicely with what the student trustees presented in their equity report in terms of the Provincial Student Trustee Initiative to approach the Ministry of Education to provide menstrual products in schools. And you may have noticed in recent weeks, in fact, in neighboring school boards and also in boards across the country, there has been a wave of initiatives to provide menstrual products in schools for students. Also, before my tenure at the board, so either in late 2019 or early 2020, trustees may recall that they approved in principle this initiative for the provision of menstrual products. And so really since that time, we've been engaged in a pilot. We ran a pilot starting in October in 4 schools. So that was Craig Kielburger, White Oaks, Dr. Frank Hayden, and Georgetown District. And the purpose of the pilot was really to get a sense of student feedback and commentary about the initiative and about the products. In the course of running the pilot though, and as you were certainly well aware, not all students are in secondary schools in person at this time, and those who are in school in person are only there for part of the time. So we didn't get as much student feedback as we might have gotten in a pre-pandemic year, perhaps. But our information from the research department is that the student response of roughly 155 is certainly enough to validate the information received in the student feedback. And so really based on student feedback, they highlighted the need for a strong communications initiative to really raise awareness about the issue. The issue of the provision of menstrual products is one that certainly addresses student need and also tries to destigmatize issues around menstruation. in schools. And so students really wanted to see a robust communication initiative when this is rolled out fully. And the plan is to roll it out fully for September 2021. And that would be in all schools, in all multi-stalled female washrooms, as well as gender-neutral washrooms. The need for access for these products for students who may not typically identify as female is something that also came through in the student feedback. I think those are the highlights. Also, in the next few months, in addition to working on the communication plan, so information and awareness videos or tools to support the rollout, really to address this issue of stigma. We're also going to be looking at installing some of the dispensers that we have and really responding to student comments about the nature of the product. Students spoke about the need to perhaps look at providing a range of products to meet their different needs. And also the quality of products. There was a comment that because a product is provided for free, it need not necessarily be of a lower standard. So we're looking at ways to address that student feedback. So I'm happy to answer any questions that trustees might have about the feedback report. And certainly I will leave it open to Executive Officer Garett to speak to any logistical issues that I might have omitted or the questions you might have in that regard.
And if I could, through the chair to trustees, just to update, the student feedback has been very insightful to help us with proper placement of the dispensers, for example, away from entryways. We will take that guidance. It's certainly easy to implement and so good feedback. We are assessing the availability of various products that could be used with the dispenser. We will say there are some technical challenges and limitations around the weight and size and how that actually operates in the dispensary itself. And certainly, but there are some options, but we will need to explore that and balance that with the timing of the implementation as well. We are in a position where the next steps are detailed in the report, and we can certainly roll out and implement before September startup. And I think the capital funding is there for the dispensers as well as our operational budget to support a rollout to all schools. But trying to balance the product choice option will be a bit of a technical challenge, but certainly looking to explore various options. Thank you.
Okay, we have a few people on the speakers list. First up is Trustee Shuttleworth. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I think this is to Superintendent Garett, or it might be to Dr. Amoa as well. You speak of next steps, and I do remember when we initially spoke about this, the idea of cost always comes up. So what I'm wondering is, are there any partnership opportunities we see in moving forward?
I do believe that's something that we are exploring. Certainly Dr. Amoa has some other great opportunities and startups that offer great products, and I think we're interested in exploring that. At the same time, we do need to respect our contracts with existing vendors that supply services to our board. So as I get more familiar, I'll certainly explore the contract end of things in terms of what we have signed on for with our existing vendors, but certainly we'll look at Dr. Amoa's opportunities that she's bringing forward. And yeah, I do see an area of growth and partnership here. Certainly this is being rolled out not only within Halton, but province-wide and beyond. So hopefully there are other opportunities that present themselves to us.
Okay, next on the speakers list is Trustee Rocha.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, I'm really proud of our board for putting this forward and executing on this. This is fantastic. My question, I think, addresses two concerns, financial and environmental. So I'm not aware, well, I'm not familiar with the, I guess, with what we teach our students as far as what's available to them. The report does refer to tampons and pads, but there is a third option, there are menstrual cups that, in the long run, much cheaper, and they're also much more environmentally friendly. So perhaps someone from curriculum could share with me what it is we teach our students as far as options are concerned.
Through you, Chair Gerbens, to Trustee Rocha. There. Okay, there's Superintendent Salmini.
Through the chair to Trustee Rocha, certainly in elementary school, we teach about the menstrual process, changes to the body, all of those pieces at an early enough age prior to girls starting to menstruate. At this point, the cups, the Diva cup that you're speaking of is not something that is commonly talked about, but something that we're discussing as adding as an option of conversation for young girls. Again, recognizing that there are family choices when girls choose menstrual products as well, and being sensitive to that piece of a young woman's decision around the products.
Okay. Next on the list is actually me. So I am so happy to see this report come forward and to see the feedback come through. And I really see such a success in having students recognize that people who are transgender could be experiencing this, and it's reflected in the comments. And I was really happy to see that. I certainly applaud this initiative. I think it's long overdue. I even think back to my own school days and the trauma that some students go through when they just aren't prepared. So I think that this is a great initiative, and I applaud everybody involved, and I look forward to further updates on how this is going and how it can be supported, hopefully at a provincial level. And there are no other speakers on the speakers list. So thank you very much for your report. Okay, and the last information item for this evening is the COVID-19 schools update. Director Miller, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair Gerbens. I'll turn it straight over to Superintendent Blackwell, and then I have some comments at the end of this update.
Thank you, Chair Gerbens. A couple of items on today's update. The board is aware of the fact that on Saturday, April 3rd, the Halton District School Board decided to temporarily close Tiger Jeet Singh Public School to students for this week. So it's 4 days of April 6th to the 9th. Students have moved to online learning for these 4 days, and the school will reopen to learning for students on Monday, April 19th. It's important to note that this decision was made due to operational concerns that have impacted continuity of learning for students, and that it was a decision that the board made, and it was not directed by Halton Region Public Health. We have an update on requests for consideration for secondary changes for Quadmester 4. We had 499 requests. 233 requests for virtual secondary school, and 165 of those requests were met, so approximately 70%. We had 266 requests to return to homeschools, and 172 of those requests were met. And it's a reminder to the board that in the case of unfulfilled requests, it's really a result of the inability to match the timetable that the students wanted with what's available in the school. So you'll recall we talked about availability of specific courses. They may have already run earlier in the year. The course may have been full. We have cohort sizes to maintain within our brick and mortar schools, or the course is just not offered at that site. So a central message will go home on Thursday or Friday of this week. And all secondary students will receive a personal email on Tuesday, April 20th, containing a copy of their timetable, whether they requested a change or not. It will provide cohorting information and a fresh copy of the quad calendar in preparation for the start of quad 4, which is our final quadmester this year. They'll receive that, and that starts on Monday, April 26th. For virtual students, the calendar includes a change to the Student Success Day at the virtual school, so that marks can be already and sent to home schools for promotion meetings, which is about graduating students and receiving diplomas from their home school. And then today there were a couple of announcements that were shared by the ministry, and many of you will have seen that in the media. April break is continuing as we prepare to return on April 19th. So our staff and our students are definitely looking forward to a week off. Asymptomatic testing continues to be available at pharmacies and will now be opening up at assessment centers. So in Halton, those are our 4 regional hospitals. We also will have asymptomatic testing occurring prior to the start of school next Saturday, and those schools that are in the CKSS family will have been notified. Communication will be shared with families, including new requirements to verify school screening for elementary students, and this is new. Right now we have our secondary students that are verifying their screening. They're showing their check mark to go to school after they've done their screening, and we also have all of our staff that do that daily. So it will be expanded to our elementary students. So families will hear information on that prior to coming back on April 19th. And then great news, vaccinations for special education workers were announced today. We're awaiting details on identifying eligible staff, and we're actually meeting with public health tomorrow, and we'll have an update for the board after our meeting tomorrow. But we know that will move very quickly, and that's exciting news for our staff. And that's all I have at this time.
Director Miller, go right to
Or are there questions for Superintendent Blackwell?
Oh, yes, there is. Sorry, Trustee Amos, go right ahead.
Thank you. Through you to Superintendent Blackwell. So I've been getting questions since the announcement today about the lockdown. How will that affect students back from April break? Because it's supposed to be for 4 weeks, and they're wondering if they're all going to be going to virtual mode or if they'll be going back to their regular schedule, especially high school students is the ones that I've been hearing from, but I would imagine elementary students would also be interested in knowing what the answer is.
So thank you for that. Through the chair to Trustee Amos. At this time, schools are intended to return and open on April 19th. It's interesting, the ministry has also talked about providing some resources to families. So our educators will be getting some resources. We'll be asked to look at refresher learning around all of our IPAC measures, or infection prevention and control measures. We know that those reminders will be important. There will be a letter coming from the ministry to families as well about reminders over the week off, and knowing that, we want kids back in the building and we want everyone to be safe, that, some reminders of doing some asymptomatic screening prior to coming back to school. And that will be really pushed from the board and the provincial perspective. So we're looking forward to returning on the 19th. We have no indication that we won't be at this time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and there are no others. Oh, I'm wrong. Trustee Rocha, go right ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Perhaps I could ask it now or maybe later on in the meeting, but can you share with us ultimately whose decision is it to close the school board during a pandemic?
Chair Grabentz, why don't we wait until I make my comments? Because I think the answer is in there for Trustee Rocha. Is that okay?
Yep, go right ahead.
So I do have a few comments because there's been a lot of chatter, a lot on Twitter, and a lot of, shall we say, criticism of myself, the Chief Medical Officer of Health in the region of Halton, and this Board of Trustees, including the chair. And the criticisms came from a couple of ways. The first was because we had not sent a letter to the Chief Medical Officer of Health when some other boards did, asking for priority vaccinations for staff in this board. Staff need to know, and I've had this conversation with the union leadership, that we have been advocating and had several meetings with public health around this issue. But like everything else, it is complex and political in nature. And quite frankly, the region of Halton did not have enough vaccine. There are currently 30,000 education workers and daycare workers combined in the province. And when I spoke with the region of health, or in Halton, I should say, sorry. When I spoke with the Chief Medical Officer of Health last week, Halton had 12,000 vaccines, and they had not yet gone through those people most at risk from dying or having severe illness. That was a priority for the region of Halton, and it was a moral dilemma for us to pursue a letter that put it into the political realm when there was simply just not enough vaccine available. Those conditions have changed. We have met with Dr. Magani 2 or 3 times, and it is appropriate now. And thus, we have written a letter. I have written a letter, as Dr. Magani said, leader to leader, to Dr. Magani, and I will read briefly what it says. I won't read the whole thing. It says, as Halton Public Region works to plan vaccinations, we are hopeful that vaccinations would be best timed to coincide with the spring break, Saturday, April 10th to Sunday, April 18th. This would maximize the number of education workers who wish to be vaccinated during this period to be able to do so, given all schools will be empty. We've also offered to facilitate the use of our buildings and be vaccination centers as well, and we would provide some services to make that go slowly. So we have written a letter asking for education workers, and we have had lots of conversations about the significance of those staff members who work with students who perhaps are the most vulnerable. They are and are self-contained, and many of them are unmasked. So those conversations have been going on for a couple of weeks, and I think it was important to know, but this is a complex issue, and there are many, many opinions out there on how these things should move forward. And I feel badly that some of our staff have felt that they were unsupported by us, but I can assure you they were completely supported because we've had several meetings, and the purpose of a letter was to put it in the public domain, and the conversations were not in the public domain because we felt that they were being more effective. And as it turns out, the province has announced vaccinations for special education, mobile vaccination units. I am certainly not taking credit for that, but I do know that our own Chief Medical Officer of Health has been quite an advocate for that to happen. So, I don't know the machinations of what went on at the provincial level, but certainly the result is that our special education staff who work with those students with the greatest needs will be getting their vaccinations soon. And it appears as though all ed workers will be getting them sooner, much sooner than what was originally said, which was June, if we'll recall. So it appears as though much of it will be done in April. So that letter came from me to them. There's more work to do around advocacy, though, I guess, and I will leave it to the chair when I talk to that. The second item, and this is where Trustee Rocha asked around whose decision is it to close. And the public often doesn't understand this, understandably so. And our staff doesn't understand it as well, understandably so. I would suggest that when I was a teacher, I would not have known the process either. But at the present time, when the schools have been closed in Peel and Toronto and Upper Grand, it has been by order of the Public Health through Section 22 of the Public Health Act. And indeed, the director And the Board of Trustees never have that power, but the Director of Education does not have the authority to close the schools under a public health emergency. I can close schools or make a decision to close schools because of an operational issue or a temporary safety issue, which is the situation with snow days. But if, as an example, if snow days, if we were to have 2 weeks of snow days consecutively, we would have to figure out how to have the schools open. I could not order the schools closed for 2 weeks. So operational issues are under the purview of the director. Public health issues are under the purview of the chief medical officer of health. We as directors, and I as a director in this case, also do not have the ability to counter an order from public health. I can't say, well, I don't agree and we're not doing it. Or I can't say, well, and I can't tell the public health, the chief medical officer, what to do as well. So there's some, shall we say, misunderstanding around it, and also some misinformation. Some people who should know better perpetuate certain views that are untrue. I don't know what their intent is, but that's what they do. So I hope that answers your question about that, Trustee Rocha. But I also want to share with trustees a couple of things that I have spoken with Dr. Magani about. This was as of yesterday, though, not today. The schools in Halton have not been closed because the chief medical officer does not believe that it's appropriate at this time. And our situation in Halton is not the same as it is in Peel. It is not the same as it is in Toronto. They have significant hotspot issues and so on. Virtually all the transmission in Halton is in the community. It is not in our schools. And to give you an example, between us and Halton Catholic District School Board, there are 200 schools in Halton. And we have had, since the pandemic, 13 outbreaks declared. An outbreak is more than is 2 people in the same class. Some of those 13 outbreaks were in the same school. As a result, we had closed Tiger Jeet Singh for this week because we couldn't staff it. And it's a bit of a egg and chicken question. The public health situation caused teachers to be off, kids not to show up, and classes to be closed, and it posed a real problem. So I ordered that school closed because of operational issues and an inability to provide enough staff for the kids in the school. And the same with River Oaks a couple of weeks ago. So it's important to know that they believe that they don't believe, they know that the transmission of the virus is happening in the community, and the students should be in school because it tends to show that there's a belief that with them in the community, it could spread even further. Now, we have heard from a lot of people who object to the schools being open and a lot of criticism, and it's fair. It's fair, and we live in a democracy, and criticism is fair, and different opinions are fair. But I would share with trustees the data because there's a large swath of the population out there of parents and kids who are not sending his emails and not sending on Twitter and all sorts of stuff. So I asked my staff today to look at 2 separate dates on attendance in school. And the dates we picked were March 23rd and April 6th. March 23rd before the 3rd wave hit. On March 23rd, in our elementary system, we had 32,273 students attend school in person. That was March 23rd. On April 6th, which was just yesterday, we had 32,293 students attend school. So the same number, in fact, a little more attended yesterday than they did on March 23rd. On April 6th, we had 2,700 students across our system absent. And on March 23rd, we had 1,574 students absent. So the numbers are not that much different before we hit this 3rd wave. At secondary, and I want it noted in secondary, we only have half the students in the brick and mortar schools at a time. So multiply, half of the students are in a virtual school, in asynchronous learning, and the other half are brick and mortar. Then they flip. It's a little more complicated than that, but so in secondary on April 6th, on March 23rd, we had 6,838 students, secondary school students in our schools across the board. On April 6th, we had exactly the same number, 6,838 students in our schools in secondary. We had 903 kids absent yesterday, and in March 23rd, we had 641. And the fluctuations because some kids have been from virtual to so on. So you can see that a significant number of Oakville parents, Halton parents, have chosen to send their kids to school in the brick and mortar. So I wanted that out there because we're hearing a lot of criticism about things, but I think it's important for clarity for all trustees to be made aware of that information. So I don't have anything else to add, but I do want to emphasize that we absolutely support our staff and our families, and we do support all our workers, and particularly those working with the kids with the biggest needs, or the greatest needs, to get vaccinations as quickly as possible and let us get out of this pandemic. And we are prepared to do whatever it is as a school board in terms of providing schools and or staff to facilitate that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking to the speakers list, Vice Chair Al Harrison, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. And this has, as it's been pointed out, been an evolving scenario with respect to who's being vaccinated when, and even as late as today, there was new information, which was, it's really great to hear that the staff that work with special education students will be vaccinated ASAP. As Director Miller pointed out, the letter that he read out, part of the reason was to put that information into the public, and just to, I think we're all trying to advocate for the right thing here, which is to get people vaccinated. And so I did put together a motion for everyone's consideration, whether we as trustees would also like to add our voices publicly to this sort of wave. And it goes like, be it resolved that the chair be directed to write a letter to the Minister of Education and the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health within 1 day to express the critical urgent imperative of vaccinating all education workers at the beginning of the phase 2 vaccination rollout, and be it further resolved that the letter include the request to direct public health units to utilize the April break to vaccinate education workers to ensure timeliness for staff and efficiency for boards. The second part of that motion is about something that I don't know that we've talked about here tonight yet, and that is just, what does it look like when we have thousands of staff making appointments for vaccinations in multiple jurisdictions, and how are we going to be covering those positions? We and other school boards around the province, it seems like we do have a golden opportunity with this April break. If the supply is there, it would be just great to get that a big boost, if you will. So that's the impetus for that second part of the motion. And I would happily move that and to get it on the floor and see what my colleagues think.
And I see Trustee Oliver, you'd like to second that motion?
Yes, I would love to second it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looking to the speakers list on this. This is germane. I don't know if people want to make a motion, since we're talking about a letter that would go out immediately. This can't really wait until the next meeting. I suppose we could have a quick vote just to make everybody comfortable about suspending the rules. Anybody like to make a motion to suspend the rules? Okay, Trustee Rocha, as seconded by Trustee Oliver. Okay, so is there any discussion first on suspending the rules? Everybody's shaking their head, and I don't see anything on the speakers list. Okay, so if you could please quickly vote for suspending the rules to deal with it this evening, so everybody's nice and comfortable. We have 9, 10. Just missing one, and it's not me. Oh, there we go. And that carries. That's interesting. Trustee Danielle, yours actually says it's blank. Do you vote yes? Just out of curiosity, because it doesn't
hit the yes.
Yeah, it's weird. It just is blank. Okay, so it's funny because it's also required, so I don't know how that happened. So that carries unanimously. So now we are able to deal with it this evening. So talking specifically about the motion on the table, are there any speakers to this at all? Yeah, so I'll say that I am in favor of this motion. I think that it's important for the public to understand that the logistics of trying to vaccinate staff that don't necessarily reside in our region could mean people signing up for vaccinations in Wellington, Hamilton, Peel, and them having to travel back to their regions, potentially during the day, to be able to get vaccinated and returning to our schools. So we would need coverage. And Director Miller, do we have, how is our level, like our ability to cover mass amounts of staff that need to get vaccinated in a regular school day or week or whatever?
Through you, Chair Gerbents, to all trustees, we have been working with public health on a plan that I do not. Let me put it this way: Superintendent Blackwell's on there. We can't talk very much about it at the moment, but it would not. We would not have to have. We would not have a significant issue with staff being absent from school. And that's because we would look at the locations and the clinics where they would be. I'm a little veiled in what I'm saying, but we understand. I guess the best way to describe it, we understand that consideration, and we are working to mitigate against it. How about that, Superintendent Blackwell? Yeah.
She's given a thumbs up. Okay. So, well, that's good news. I also,
quite frankly, Chair Gerbents, the priority will be to get staff vaccinated that want to be vaccinated, and hopefully that's all of them. And we will do our utmost to make it seamless and mitigate against disruption to our schools and to their personal lives.
Okay, thank you. I see no other speakers on the speakers list. So we shall vote on this motion put forth by Vice Chair Al Harrison. Just missing one vote. There we go, and that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Trustee Danielle, your vote came through this time. Okay, so.
Not a cat.
A letter will be going out tomorrow then. Okay. Next, we are up to notices of motion. Do we have any notices of motion? Seeing no one on the speakers list, we will move forward. Oh, Vice Chair Al Harrison, go right ahead.
Hello, yes, I do have one. And I'm not sure if it will come up in another part of the agenda tonight where we could hook it in. If not, I guess, anyway, here it is. So here's some background. In December 2020, OPSPA and other education stakeholders submitted very detailed input to the Minister of Education regarding a concept of expanding student access to online and remote learning. In late March, a number of media outlets described in detail and provided what appeared to be a confidential slide deck containing information about the province of Ontario's plans for expanding student access to online and remote learning. Now, despite the Minister of Education using words like education partners and consultation, much of the advice, from what I can see from OPSPA, seems to have been overlooked. And to this day, I don't believe that boards have received this information that has been prominent in the media, despite its potential profound impacts on public education. So the motion is for another letter as a first step, and it goes something like this. Be it resolved that the chair of the board be directed to write a letter within 1 week to the Minister of Education to request reconsideration of the expanding student access to online and remote learning approach, and to request a collaborative approach so that any new direction reflects insights and experiences from all public education partners and are in the best interests of students and the public education system.
Okay, thank you very much for that notice of motion. I think that topic will probably be showing up later on in our meeting, and we may be able to have that happen. I have a suggestion, though, for the motion. If it does pass this evening, the letter to be written says within 1 week, and that is during spring break, and it may not be the best time to send that letter. It may be a week later, might be a better time, as you know, the system as a whole may not be as you know, closely watching as it could be once we return to school. I see you nodding your head. Maybe that's a good change. But so we can discuss that once it comes to the table. Okay, and so we'll move on at this point up to the director's report, and go right ahead, Director Miller.
Thank you, Chair Events. The first item on there is capital priorities timelines. And so I will turn it over to, I believe, Executive Officer of Facilities, Ian Gadet, but it might be General Man. Oh, no, there's Ian. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, so we received, surprisingly, on March 24th, B Memo 05 from the Ministry of Education requesting our capital priorities for 21-22 school year. The timelines are relatively tight. They're seeking our response back to them by May 21st. So with that, we've compiled a team that's looking at our past business cases, reassessing what was approved in the past and what we may go forward with again this year. There are information sessions that the ministry is holding over the next few weeks, and we do have staff reaching out to the ministry to make connections there. For those of you that are familiar with previous capital priorities program requests, they're very similar, looking at accommodation pressures as a priority. Poor condition schools is on the list. Also consolidations, even though we can't do that, and childcare. So very similar, seeking up to 10 priorities. We may narrow that list down given the time frame and the tight constraints to do the business cases, as well as what I believe to be the funding realities. And I do think they're looking for these to be delivered upon by 24-25 school year. Pleased to entertain any questions if you have any.
Seeing none at this time. So, oh, wait. Sorry, Trustee Gray. Go right ahead.
Thank you through the chair to Ian Gadet. You've mentioned that consolidations might be on the list, and yet, if my understanding is correct, we still do not have any renewed guidelines from the ministry. Therefore, we couldn't proceed in that direction if we wanted to. So I'm curious why bother including it on our list, other than to sort of bookmark it as something that we want for consideration in the future.
Yes, and I would suggest to you that you are correct. I don't see any real outcomes from this other than the fact that the language is, I'll say, similar to past submission requests.
And Chair Grabentz, I would, may I add something to you, Trustee Gray? There is value in keeping it there for the province to see this, that boards are, our board and other boards are having these challenges. And I think it needs to be in basically the public domain, that these are things that we still need to do, even though not much, we still have not seen the new guidelines.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No other questions on this topic. Director Miller, do you have your next?
I do. And I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Etoff with a very good announcement.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm pleased to announce, well, I'm not pleased to announce that Mary Marshall, System Principal for Equity and Inclusion, unfortunately has announced her retirement. And that's going to be a massive loss for the system. And hey, let's face it, to me. You all know the work that she's done in order to move the board forward with respect to human rights and equity. So it'll be a huge loss for us. And but over the past couple of weeks, we've run a process to try and replace her. We are very pleased to announce that we have hired Shalita Walker. She's currently the principal at Oakwood Public School, and she will be beginning the position in September.
That is great news. Looking to the speakers list, see if anybody has anything to say about that. I know I'll certainly miss Mary Marshall. Wonderful resource, lovely person. So But congratulations to her on making that decision. Next step in life's journey, and we wish her all the best. Okay. No speakers on the speakers list, so Director Miller, go right ahead.
Thank you. Well, this one's, as trustees are all aware, and you are aware of this, but I think it's important that we announce it publicly, and I will put a note out tomorrow, and we have not met for a couple of weeks. But as you are all aware, because I did it here to surprise you, Superintendent Hunt Gibbons has announced her retirement and will be retiring with her accumulated vacation and so on in early June. And I made some comments there, as did some of the trustees on here, and I know Julie is going to be very much missed and has done yeoman's work for this board and the PO board. But since the last board meeting, I've had 2 more retirements of superintendents come in. The first one is Superintendent John Pennyfather. And John has been with the board for 130 years. I don't know. It's a long time John has been with the board. He's an extremely talented musician and actually was a professional musician prior to going into education. And John was a very successful teacher, a well-loved teacher. And when we talk about teachers that engage with students, I always think of John because he's just a soft-spoken, engaging character and personality that kids could relate to. And of course, it helps that you are pretty musically talented as well. And then John became a principal, and I had the good fortune to be his superintendent in Oakville when he was a principal. And, when I knew John, he was principal of, first of all, Pilgrim Wood, and then Odenawi when it first opened. I would walk around that school with him on visits. He knew every kid, and every kid knew him. And it sounds like an exaggeration, but it wasn't. I would walk through the halls, and John would talk to the students, and he would know their names. And, I'm a secondary person. They tend to mope through the halls and saunter through the halls. The ones in the elementary school are buzzing about like bees, and John would be speaking to them all. And it was moving to watch it. And then, as you know, John became a superintendent, a very successful superintendent. He's done a masterful job with PIC. He was our social justice lead and has expanded our MOUs with social justice organizations and has raised the whole specter of social justice in this board, which for our students is highly significant. I think it's significant for us all, but there's a lot of research that show that kids that volunteer and are engaged in social justice, they do better at school and they do all sorts of stuff. And John has been very, very instrumental in allowing that to happen. Plus, he gave fantastic support to his schools. Those trustees of you who got the privilege to work closely with John knows how much he cared about kids. And I always remember during his interview, and I'm paraphrasing, and I don't do a very good job of paraphrasing, so I hope I don't mess it up. But he was asked a question about the students with big needs, either educational needs or needs in the home, or kids that have been bullied, or all those things. And the question was about how do you support these students and so on. And John said, I put the big arms of comfort around them and their families. And we just, the metaphorical arms, and he makes everybody feels good. And then he takes actions after that to figure out how to prevent it from happening again. But his first move was always to support and show he cared. And that speaks to John. The second superintendent that is retiring, and this, I would say, totally surprised me, and it's totally surprised his colleagues. And I'm sure it surprised many of the trustees on here. And that's Mark Zonnefeld. Mark has been with this board for 32 years, also a talented musician. Maybe John and Mark should go off and start their own band. But Mark was a teacher in our board, and he, of course, was a very successful teacher. Kids loved him, and I may tell a funny story about him. I'm thinking about it in my head here. I don't know if I will or not, but he then became a principal, very successful principal, worked all over this board. He has worked in every corner of this board as a principal. And then, of course, Mark became a superintendent. And this is where Mark really shone. You know, one of the most difficult jobs, and it's not because of families or kids, but one of the most difficult jobs in any board of education is the superintendent of student services around looking after students with special needs. And the reason it's a difficult job is because the needs of these kids are often complex. The demands placed on these kids are mighty a lot of times. These are kids that experience a lot of, and I'm generalizing a little bit, but many of these kids don't experience the same success in school as others. They experience some social problems and social issues that come across. And it's important, absolutely important, that the superintendent of student services be an advocate for these kids, a promoter of the values of the board, and to support them and their families. And it's a taxing job. It's a job that demands all of your attention and all of those things that you value and love about education. And Mark has been our longest serving superintendent of student services. And it speaks volumes for the character he is, that when we were doing a shuffle, he said he'd stay in the job, he'd continue to do it. And I don't want it to be misinterpreted that people don't want to do it or don't want to be in it and they want to get, it's not. It's just a hard job to do because you often deal with people with and kids with real needs, and we're not always successful. Sometimes we're not able to fulfill those needs for those kids, and that's a hard message sometimes to deliver to people. And Mark always did it with sensitivity and caring for the whole person. He's a great friend of all the superintendents around there, and he's well known in this board. And I've decided to tell the funny story. When Mark was a principal, as you know, principals all have EpiPens. Tracy's holding their head. Don't worry, it's not a bad story. Have EpiPens. And a boy was having a reaction. And Mark, as the principal, went and got the EpiPen, read the instructions, and jabbed it into the boy's leg, as you're supposed to. Nothing happened. And he looked, it was sticking in his thumb. He had it upside down and stuck it right in his thumb. Now, there's a second part to that story. We were doing a tour up in Halton Hills at the Gary Allen in Gary Allen School, high school, and we were touring the school, and we went into a classroom, and a student goes, "Mr. Zonnefeld." It was that student who had required that EpiPen that day. And the real poignant part of that story was that student remembered Mark with such fondness that you really understood the type of educator he was and the type of person he was. So with that, Mark, John, Julie, they're all gone, and Mark will be gone sooner than we think because of accumulated vacations and so on. He will be leaving us sometime in May. And with that, I don't think I have anything else to add, but I'll turn it back to you, Chair Garett.
Thank you. And I'm going to look to the speakers list. And I don't see anybody's, but I have stuff to say. So, Mr. Pennefather, you, for the past while, you have been one of the superintendents for my schools, and now you are the superintendent for, I believe, all my schools. And I have to say that my schools are quiet. They're quiet. And, you know, that says a lot about leadership. Parents at all of my schools, and I have, I believe, a dozen, all of my schools have access, direct access to my cell phone number and my email address. It's right on the board site. I don't have an administrative assistant filtering anything, and very little comes to me because of the leadership in those schools and the leadership that is helping those schools at a superintendent level. And I really appreciate all the work that you do. When we have had issues, I've watched you work your magic. I've watched you wrap those arms around the people involved. And it's been great to see, and things have been resolved. So it's been great. It's also been great talking to you and knowing that you were a musician, a drummer, and you know, lots. It's always great to hear that people have lives outside of their work. And Mark Zonnefeld, I had an interesting conversation with someone. I know this sounds like this is going in a weird direction, but one of my neighbors around the corner knows what I do and asked if I knew Mark Zonnefeld. And I went, yes, he's one of our superintendent. Well, he was my favorite teacher. And this, of course, was someone older. And that person, I'm sorry if that sounds terrible, but that person picked you out of their whole career as a student as being most favorite teacher. And I think to stick out in people's mind like that means you've made an incredible impression. And we are so lucky to have had you through the system, influencing the system, standing up for the system. So thank you very, very much. And Trustee Amos is on the speaker's list.
I'm feeling old. I've been around for so long. I've seen so many, I guess every one of you hired as a superintendent. I met John as a VP at one of my schools, and I knew he had great things ahead. He treated the students with such dignity. He made sure that everyone was addressed. And then I was able to work with him as the principal at O'Nowie. And I have pictures of him playing drums for the kids because they all said, we need you to play music for us. And he did. He is, the students, I know it was a really tough decision for him to become a superintendent because he had just started as the principal at O'Nowie. But I am so thankful he did because he has transferred that skill that he had with the students and worked with the parents, and you've just made a difference through your whole journey. And Mark, while I never got to work with you directly as a principal or a vice principal, I know we've worked together on different committees and in your role as superintendent. And I have such respect for everything you have done and what you have achieved throughout this board. We're going to miss you all. And I already spoke about Julie, so Stuart does this just to try and get me to cry. But so I know we'll all have a chance, hopefully, even if it's somehow celebrate all of you leaving. But just thank you for all you've done.
And I'm sure trustees will, other trustees will reach out personally. Not everybody wants to make a big public speech. So there's.
I'm wondering if Superintendent Zonnefeld or Pennyfather would like to say anything.
Well, I would just like to thank you all for the kind words. I've been honored to serve the students of Halton, and when I look back, I've worked with so many great educators and educational champions like the trustees around our table. And I leave thinking that public education is the most important pillar in a civil society and a democracy, and we have to keep supporting it and keep fighting for it, because it makes the difference for so many people. So thank you.
Well said, John. Maybe I'll add that this has been a hard decision for me, because my 32 years in Halton have been an absolute pleasure. I feel so fortunate to have worked in such a great organization, but really it's about the people. Such great students, educators, and this, the trustees and this senior team have kept me going day after day. And when I was making my decision to retire, my wife Carla said to me, I never worry about you going to work, because you always enjoy it. You look forward to each day. And so she was surprised when I finally decided, but I thought, I want to go feeling strong about the work that I do, and continue to enjoy my work. I'd rather miss this than say, okay, it's time for me to leave. And so, the timing feels right in that way, but it's going to be hard saying goodbye to everybody. That's going to be the hard part. So thank you for so many years of such a great experience for me. The growth for me has been fabulous. And I look forward to this next journey, and will certainly look fondly back on my time at HDSB. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
And I know the public can't see this, but there is a round of applause happening on all the little Brady Bunch squares. We are going to miss you both. Director Miller, do you have any other items in your director's report?
No, I don't. Thank you, Chair Gervais.
Okay, so the next section is communications from the chair. We have several letters that have been written. Actually, the first letter is from the ministry responding to our letter. So we need to keep writing letters. They're going to respond to us. Responding to our letter about high-speed internet and rural communities. And then there's OPSPA correspondence that we were CC'd on about vaccination for education workers. And Toronto Catholic District School Board correspondence also about vaccinations, and Upper Grand District School Board correspondence, plans for progression of pandemic. And also just some further correspondence. We are talking about the director search, because our director is also retiring, and we're in the midst of that process right now. And the advertisement for the position is out right now, and the search firm is collecting or is speaking to people who are interested. And there is on our website a page that outlines the process and has the ad on it. And I don't know if Manager Denton is still on here, but if it would be great to know exactly where to look for that on the web page.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes, yes, I saw that. I will finish this up. Thanks. So we'll get that information out to the community of where to find that information. So motion to extend. May I have a motion to extend? Trustee Amos, great. And seconded by Trustee Reynolds, wonderful. Is there any we need to sort of determine a time. I wouldn't be surprised if we need a good chunk of time. Any suggestions? Trustee Collard, go ahead.
Do we need more than 15 minutes?
I think we may. Can we, half an hour?
Half an hour.
Half an hour. I see nods for half an hour. It doesn't mean we have to go a half an hour, but okay. Okay, so all those in favor of extending for a half an hour. That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We are extending for half an hour. Okay, so next we are up to committee reports, Accessibility Coordinating Committee. And this was a report submitted by Trustee Shuttleworth. Trustee Shuttleworth, did you have anything that you wanted to add, or are we good?
No, just I did notice there's one little typo in it, but I'll fix it later. It says at instead of all, but.
Okay, no problem. Okay, next we are up to trustee questions and, oops, yes, sorry, Trustee Garett, go right ahead.
Would it be okay, Chair, if I gave a quick SEAC update from last night's meeting?
Absolutely.
Promise it'll be under 60 seconds.
Go right ahead.
Go ahead and time me. All right. Last night we had a great SEAC meeting, and we had an excellent presentation from 3 instructional program leaders for the Community Pathways program, and they talked about the guide and the co-op program and the tweaks and that's going on in that, and it's very exciting. The superintendent of business, Nagoy, gave us the SEAC, all the SEAC members, a budget update and filled us in, and of course she'll be coming back to us later so that we can ask more questions. Superintendent Ruddock presented her report highlighting such things as de-streaming grade 9 math, summer learning, structured learning class pilot for children with autism that will be a 2-year pilot. And finally, a reminder that self-contained classes might get changed a little, as they often do, and gave us an overview of what those might look like in September. And finally, Trustee Al Harrison reiterated that this board is behind all the SEAC members, and if they should wish to write letters to the ministry or any other SEAC groups, that we will support them in any ways that we possibly can. And that's all I have. Trustee Al Harrison, do you have anything that you might want to throw in on there? Did I miss anything?
That's good. Thank you. Awesome.
Okay, thank you very much. And I see Trustee Danielle, you're on the list there.
Thank you very much. I think this will come under committees. Just a reminder to trustees that this weekend is the OPSPA Central West Regional Meeting. You've received or saved the date. You should be receiving the agenda tomorrow. And also, while speaking about OPSPA, I'd like to extend my thanks to Trustee Margot Shuttleworth. I put out a call to all Central West trustees to ask for a representative to sit on a committee to look at OPSPA and OSTA-ACO, the Student Trustees Unit, and Trustee Margot Shuttleworth was one of the ones who put her name forward, and the name drawn out of a hat, and I want to thank her very much for taking that on.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so we are up to trustee questions and comments. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Trustee Oliver, go right ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Given that the grad season is coming upon us, and I know that there are various committees coming together in the schools starting to plan graduations, be it for grade 8 or grade 12, I wanted to get some clarification around what as far as celebrations go. So we heard from the student trustees, Senate struck a graduation subgroup and presented some excellent ideas. And it sounds like many of those were accepted and approved. So I just wanted to understand, is that something that they can share and we can share with the councils and the principals for their consideration? Is there anything else that we need to think about? I'm getting a lot of questions from parents in my area. And, you know, last year things were as they were. And again, cannot have graduation as we did, but I think parents are looking to kind of build on how we were able to celebrate last year, you know, learn from that, add to it, and try and make it a more personal event. Some of the suggestions certainly will help with that, but I'm wondering, you know, could you speak to the idea and decorating the parking lots and having students maybe kind of schedule a by for a photo with the decorations in the school, that sort of thing? Thank you.
Through your chair of events, to Trustee Oliver, I will turn that over to Superintendent Newton.
Thank you, and through the chair to Trustee Oliver, we are excited that the Student Senate reached out to many students in our board to see what their wishes would be if they would look at a commencement in June or a grad celebration in June. And they did feed that information through Louisa Patello and Jay Patras, which was awesome, the reps, and with you and Trustee Rocha, which was excellent, to bring the ideas forward. Oh, sorry, Reynolds, sorry. And bring it forward to HSPA, which is the Secondary Principals Association, and HEPA, which is the Elementary Principal Association, which they then formed their committees and took a look at the work and incorporated what they could in consultation with public health. And so they have written pieces that they're asking every school to do. So thank you very much to the student trustees. They did reflect that excellent this evening, with a list of things that they could consider as a school community if they wish to, and then a list of things that we would not be endorsing. So we're not going to endorse a public gathering, even outside, with public health the way it is right now. We don't feel comfortable with that. But ultimately, we are pleased to announce the communications department in our board is providing banners for every school. And it's hoped that they will be placed outside in a nice picturesque area that parents could take opportunities to do that. Many high schools have already issued the gowns for their students, so they can go home and press them and get them ready for a photo op. And I know many of the in-person schools are looking at when kids are in their cohort, when it's safe, that they might be able to have pictures done as well. So they are working with that. We do know that the photo companies have been in our schools photographing grad photos as well, albeit can't be composites in the sense of everybody standing beside each other, but they are working with public health on those pieces. So in terms of what parents would like, I think they need to work through their children, and I would suggest that they reach out to each principal. At the end of the day, it is a principal's decision on what meets the needs of their community. And I know many schools will have committees of students and obviously school councils that want to help celebrate the work and celebrate the students. So at the end of the day, we're leaving the decisions with the school community, with the principal team, in consultation with obviously their school councils, parents, and students. So, and I also want to give a shout out to our police, our Halton Police are working with us. If any school wants to consider some type of drive-by, that the police will help coordinate that in terms of crowd control in cars, so we don't have people jumping out of cars and in front of other pieces and all those things. So it's nice to see the police, the public health, students, parents, and principals working together to try to make it as best as we can. I'll also say to add, in high school, we generally will reach out to each trustee to do some piece of a virtual that they'd like to share. But we do recognize in elementary, it's very taxing with 105 schools to ask each trustee to go to each school to do a video, et cetera. So again, I leave that with you. If you're interested in participating in elementary schools or high schools, that if you just want to reach out and connect with the principal to coordinate that, they'd love to have that in their pieces. But we also understand with the vast number of elementary schools that might not be as easy for you unless you want to clone yourself and put the message out. So I hope we can have a great June celebration for so many of our families. So thank you for that.
Just follow up. Thank you very much for that. Sounds like a lot of great ideas were shared by students and have been accepted. And I'm wondering, is there a formal document that your group has or will be sharing with the principals so that they have access to those ideas and suggestions?
Yes, and through the chair to Trustee Oliver, there is a document for both elementary and secondary, and they have been shared out 3 weeks ago. So they very much have had meetings subsequently to network and talk about ideas. They really want to try to, while each school community is different and their uniqueness, they really would like to try to make sure that the neighborhood schools are all kind of doing the same thing if possible.
Okay, Vice Chair Harrison.
Hello, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I just wondered whether we are going to go back to that tonight or whether it's the topic related to the expanding student access to online and remote learning, whether we're going to revisit that tonight or leave it to our next meeting. I just want to quote one of our trustee colleagues from Rainbow District School Board who said this proposal had her hair on fire. I'm imagining that means the proposal instilled some very strong feelings, not of the positive nature. I'm also feeling that. I'm a little bit concerned about the potential timelines and acting now may be better. I don't know. So, and I don't want to lengthen the meeting any more than necessary. But I also wouldn't like to look back on this and say we missed the boat.
Okay, so I know the conversation you'd like to have may take a bit of time. I'm just going to quickly check in with Trustee Gray, who's on the list, to see if this is a quick topic or something else.
No, thank you. It's a supplementary and in support of what Tracy was wishing to speak of. I was hoping that this would come up.
Okay, so I guess we do have a bit of time here. So, I mean, you've introduced the topic during the my brain is starting to not work. During notices of motion, and as you mentioned, the slides themselves, though I have never received them from the minister or ministry, yet they have appeared in CBC in full. The slides are in full on the internet through a CBC article. I find that fascinating. And I understand that everybody is confused about this proposal, consultation. We don't even really know what it is. And I think that in itself says a lot, especially when they're talking about parts of it being implemented in September and other parts of it in the next school year. And it involves bringing in another entity, it seems very frustrating. From what I've seen myself, and I know I'm taking a bit of time here, what I've seen myself is that what the ministry is doing is, instead of taking what we have here in the midst of a pandemic and actually taking the information from that, consulting on with parents, with students, with boards to say, how did things work out in this pandemic? What worked? What didn't? We should have robust studies happening that end up with a robust data set. And this ministry is not bothering. It's not bothering and just seems to be running forward with some proposal. And quite frankly, I'm disgusted by that. And I'm proud of the education system we have. I'm proud to be a parent sending my children to our education system. We are a world-class education system, recognized around the world. People want to have their children educated by our system. And what they're suggesting has potential to dismantle it. And I think we do need to do something, but I will now get off my soapbox and I will look to the speakers list. Trustee Shuttleworth.
Hi, yes, I'm fully in support of writing this letter. I think we always give ourselves a deadline and we're always very quick to finish it ahead of time. So I don't know that a week is really that, we're a Wednesday. I know that Vice Chair Harrison has already started to craft. So I know that we often make light work. Many hands make light work. So I support and would be very happy to second her motion.
Okay. Vice Chair Harrison, did you want to, I guess we need to suspend the rules if we want to deal with it this evening, right? We've already actually started speaking about it, but do you want to make a motion to suspend the rules?
Sure thing.
And Trustee Shuttleworth, would you like to second that motion to suspend the rules? Is there any discussion about suspending the rules to deal with it this evening? Looking to the speakers list. Seeing none. So all those in favor of suspending the rules to bring this motion to the table this evening? Just missing 2 votes. One more. There we go. So that passes unanimously. Okay, Vice Chair Harrison, can you read your motion again?
Yes.
Or if you've adjusted it, or however, the motion.
Yes, I have, based on people's comments and the fact that I had one word in there a couple times. It now reads, be it resolved that the chair of the board be directed to write a letter prior to the next board meeting to the Minister of Education to request reconsideration of the plan for expanding student access to online and remote learning, and to request a collaborative approach so that any new direction reflects insights and experiences from all public education partners and are in the best interest of students and the public education system.
Okay, and Trustee Shuttleworth, you're seconding that again. Excellent. Is there further discussion on this? Looking to the speakers list. Seeing none. So again, unless I look to the screen, no one's waving. Okay. All those in favor? I think I'm just missing one. There we go. That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Letter will come from the chair. Of course, it's input from all. So, and thank you very much. And Trustee Gray, you have something to say?
Yes, just in follow-up to this very conversation, Trustee Grabentz, or Chair Grabentz, pardon me, we have been involved in letter writing quite a lot this past year, and I do really believe it does make a difference. But I wonder, given the import of this particular letter and the dire consequences that this whole notion would have if the ministry proceeds forward, could have on public education, how does the public of Halton get to read the letters that are that come out from the board, such as the letters that you write to the ministry? Are they posted publicly? Just if you could let those who are watching tonight, or maybe even later this week as they watch, if you could let them know where this letter might reside, so that they may be able to with this. Thank you.
Absolutely. So on the as chair of the board, just underneath my name, it says correspondence from the chair, and it lists all the letters that have been written on behalf of the Board of Trustees. So once this letter is sent off, it will appear there, and it is in the public domain. So I wouldn't think that it's a problem letting other people know that it's there. Mm-hmm. Okay, and there are no other speakers for trustee questions and comments, as far as I can tell. So up to public questions, and we just have a few minutes. Vice Chair.
Sorry, Trustee Grabentz, my thing didn't work here. I do have a question.
Oh, okay, go right ahead.
Thank you.
And I see Trustee Collard also has one. Okay.
Okay.
So
through Chair to Director Miller. It's been a year since the pandemic was declared, schools were closed, and we had a number of trips canceled. I'm still hearing from parents and wondering whether they will receive their refunds, and if we have an update on the status of things, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Grabentz, Trustee Oliver, I will turn it over to Superintendent Nagoy.
Thank you, and through Chair Grabentz to Trustee Oliver. There has been some, there's a couple of providers and a number of different insurance providers as well. So depending on the trips, there have been some refunds that have been received by our families, and some that are tied up in the legal battle between Explorica and the insurance provider. Those that are tied in legal battle, there is a lawsuit between, there's a lawsuit from Explorica to Old Republic, the insurer, as well as a lawsuit from Old Republic to Explorica, and a class action suit on top of that that represents all the claimants. So we are closely monitoring the progress of all of this legal action. Unfortunately, this takes a long time, and we are communicating with parents. We've sent the last letter, I believe, at the end of December, beginning of January, with some updates, also suggesting that we provided a letter to support any claims with a credit card if that would be a faster route for our parents. And as we have more information, we will certainly provide it to our families. Unfortunately, these take time, and until the legal proceedings are complete and one party or both are ordered to do certain things to refund our families, we are not able to do anything as a board. We are not part of the contracts. We are not able to influence that, but we are keeping close contact with the both parties and trying to support our families and move along. We've also been corresponding with some of the families who had questions, specific questions about their particular trip, and trying to provide the information that we can to them as well. So we're dealing with this as a whole, as well as on a one-by-one basis. Those trips that have been refunded and all the action has been completed, and we were satisfied with the proceedings, there has been some additional refunds of the non-refundable deposits from the board to the families. And we are going to look at all the trips when the process is final. But we cannot do anything until the claims have been completed, and one of those parties assumes responsibility for refunding our families.
Okay, thank you very much. And so 5.9, oh no, sorry, Trustee Collard. There you go. Go ahead.
I was tagging on to Trustee Gray's comment about the correspondence the abundance of correspondence that we produce as a board. And I was wondering if it wouldn't be a good idea for that correspondence to be appended to our board agendas, since they are the direct result of motions.
Yes, we do actually. Sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that.
I thought they were, and then I thought, but she's not saying that.
No, and I forgot.
Okay.
But they are. They're
Thank
part of our
you.
board agendas. They come under communications from the chair. Okay, excellent. So the 5.9 public questions. I'm going to skip the preamble and just ask Vice Chair Al Harrison, do we have any questions from the public? Hopefully they're fast.
Hi, yes, Madam Chair, we do have one question from the public, and it is directed to Superintendent Blackwell. And the question is, why are masks not required in JKSK for the HDSB? The person has quite a bit of narrative also about in advocating to do so. But generally, the question is, why are masks not required for JKSK?
Thank you. Through the chair to the vice chair, Al Harrison. Well, masks are really, it's a ministry decision, right? So when we returned, I guess in January, we were directed to have masks from grade 1 through 12. I know that this board discussed this very extensively in the fall, and we chose to actually put masking on grades 1 through 3. One of the things that we look at is the age and stage of the students. We know that in talking to our public health, that students often touch their hands, they touch their faces. Often the masks are not maintained throughout the day, and actually it's probably worse to have some of the masking on because they aren't maintained with the age and stage. So we do have many measures in place, and masking is just one of many measures. We do not see a significant number of cases in our kindergarten classes as a result of not having masks in kindergarten. And one of the things that's really great about kindergarten program is that it's an outdoor program a lot of the time, right? A lot of outdoor learning, and you'll often see when you drive by schools, the kids are outside, more so for kindergarten than any other grade. So that the outdoor learning spaces that this board has invested in have been put to great use, and kids are outside with that as well. So at this time, we're following the direction of the ministry and the guidance of our local public health, which also suggests that masks are optional and kids are kindergarten, JK, and SK are welcome to wear them if they'd like.
Okay, thank you very much. And Vice Chair Harrison, I'm just confirming there are no other questions.
Correct.
Excellent. So we have hit 6.0, adjournment. We have exhausted our agenda, and I declare this meeting to be adjourned.